Chapter 48:24. Colonel Xia had an expression that said, "I can't believe it, even if you beat me to death. I refuse to accept it." Even his neck was twisted mechanically, as if it was covered in thick rust. Then he saw his future father-in-law grab the fence with both hands and call out, "Jane Eyre." Confirmed. It can't be wrong. It's my future father-in-law. Why are you here too? Lieutenant Colonel Xia's face was on the verge of collapsing. He had no choice but to go and greet them now. Thus, when Father Fu saw the brat who would completely steal his precious daughter in a few years standing in front of him like a pillar, he felt like he was an eyesore and wanted to chase him away. When his future son-in-law saw that his future father-in-law was also here, he felt anxious and asked his future father-in-law to be magnanimous and not make things difficult for him. When his future father-in-law saw that his future son-in-law was also here, he felt irritable and wanted to chase him away. He also regretted that he didn't bring more soldiers with him to chase him away. "Hello, Uncle Fu." Even though Xia Jinyuan's heart was being ravaged by a storm, he still maintained an elegant and proper appearance on the surface. He greeted Father Fu, who was an elder, in a very well-mannered manner. No matter how much Father Fu felt that the brat in front of him was an eyesore, he had to admit that the brat in front of him was unique among all the young people he had met. In addition, the brat was very polite and had a slight smile, showing both his upbringing and inner qualities. Father Fu could only keep the anger in his heart to himself. But Father Fu really could not be nice to a brat who was going to steal his precious daughter away in a few years' time. He didn't have a refreshing expression. Instead, he put on his usual serious expression and nodded slightly. His voice became gentler. "Long time no see. You look much more energetic. Are you on vacation? Where did you come from to pick up Jane Eyre?" Since he was here, he naturally came to pick up his daughter. The main thing was where he came from. "I came from the military. From now on, I will be an instructor in the same unit as Yi Qian." It was better to tell the truth than to hide it. Xia Jinyuan answered generously, which made Mr. Fu feel suffocated and his heart hurt. "How did you arrange it?" Father Fu's voice turned cold. Xia Jinyuan's eyebrows twitched as he maintained a smile and replied calmly, "I only found out yesterday. I'll tell you the details after we get in the car. It has something to do with some unpleasant things that happened on your side some time ago. That's why I made this arrangement. No need to say so much. Let's talk in the car." Father Fu's eyes flashed with sharpness when he mentioned what happened a while ago. If it weren't for the guards, something big would have happened. This was no ordinary matter, but a matter that concerned the country's military. Father Fu immediately stopped talking, and his expression softened. "It's been hard on you to come all the way here. It's not hard at all. This is our responsibility." Xia Jinyuan, who was secretly relieved, replied with a smile. He had successfully passed the test, so his future father-in-law should not make things difficult for him. "You and Jane Eyre report to the same unit, and you train together?" Before Yi Qian came out, Father Fu seized the opportunity to get some information from Jian. Although this brat's character was trustworthy, but, as a father, he still felt uneasy. Xia Jinyuan answered without hesitation, "We won't train together. We don't lead the team in the same direction. There should be some exchanges and learning in the future. If they won't train together, that means they won't see each other every day. If they won't see each other every day, that brat won't be able to take advantage of his daughter." Father Fu was instantly relieved. Chapter 48:25. Relieved, Father Fu continued, "You have the same goal, so communicating and learning from each other is beneficial for your future development. You still need to put in some effort on Jian Er's side to give her some pointers. But be careful. Different units have different requirements for you. If anyone notices anything, you'll be the one in trouble. The Northwest is a dry place, and there's a lot of beef and mutton, so it's easy to get aroused. You have to take care of yourself, and don't make a big mistake." Father Fu was being tactful, but Xia Jinyuan knew exactly what Father Fu was referring to. His future father-in-law was worried that he would make a big mistake like being a hooligan. He really did have that little bit of thought, but it was still manageable for now. After being reminded by his future father-in-law, Colonel Xia suppressed his thoughts and replied politely, Jane Eyre is leading the new team, and I need to produce results immediately. Both of us will be very busy, so I'm afraid we won't have much time to see each other. So you don't have to worry. Even if something did happen, he would be very careful. The pharmacy in front of the train station was very considerate and had all kinds of condoms. As for him, although he was carrying a camouflage backpack, he was dressed casually, so it was convenient for him to buy condoms. He chose the most expensive, thinnest, and large-sized condoms. If the condoms didn't have a chance to be used, they could be used for training. For example, condoms could prevent water from entering bullets. Condoms could hold water against the sun. Condoms could protect the muzzle of a gun, and the butt of a gun could prevent sand from entering. In short, condoms were very useful. The Special Forces soldiers on the team each had a box, and every time they finished training, they could take it out to blow up balloons. Xia Jinyuan, who had his own thoughts, hid them from his future father-in-law's sharp eyes without batting an eyelid. Yi Qian had already reached the exit, and the old man's children had already come to greet him. They thanked Yi Qian several times before leaving with the old man. His father-in-law and son-in-law stood on the side, smiling the whole time. They only came over to greet the old man's family after they left. "Dad!" Yi Qian turned around and threw himself into Father Fu's arms. Falling one step behind Father Fu, Lieutenant Colonel Xia felt extremely wronged. Before seeing his future father-in-law, he had already stretched out his arms, waiting to hug his girlfriend who had thrown herself into his arms. What could he do? However, no matter how much preparation he had done, he still couldn't withstand the arrival of his future father-in-law. What hug? Even a handshake would be nice. No, in his future father-in-law's eyes, even a handshake was considered physical contact. Feeling wronged, Xia Jinyuan watched helplessly as his girlfriend threw herself into his future father-in-law's arms. He then looked at his empty arms and sighed inwardly. The revolution hasn't succeeded yet. Work hard. Father Fu gently patted Yi Qian's shoulder. Tears welled up in his eyes. Good. You've grown taller and more energetic. It's just that you've lost weight. You've lost so much weight that my heart aches for you. I didn't lose weight. I'm still the same as before. In front of Father Fu, Yi Qian was just an ordinary child. He let go of all his worries and was so carefree that even his smile was full of childishness. Standing behind them, Xia Jinyuan saw this, and the smile on his thin lips deepened. Although he couldn't hug his baby immediately, he felt relieved when he saw her carefree smile. His lover was very, very happy now. Father Fu still felt that his daughter had lost weight. He gently squeezed Yi Qian's shoulders with both hands. His kind eyes were full of heartache. You still say you haven't lost weight. Your shoulder blades weren't this high last time, and your chin isn't sharp either. You've grown taller, but your weight is still the same as before. You've lost weight. Chapter 48:26. Yi Qian thought about it and said coquettishly, "Maybe I lost some weight, but I don't feel it." "Dad, you're the one who lost weight. Have you been very busy recently? Look at your bloodshot eyes. You must be working through the night." "Haha, let's go. We'll talk in a car." Father Fu laughed and avoided his daughter's question. The orderly next to him saw this and turned his head to suppress a smile. The strict Worker Fu at the base also had such a mischievous side. His daughter looked at Worker Fu with a smile. Her eyes and eyebrows were very similar to his, but other parts were different. It was obvious that she took after Worker Fu's wife. As for Worker Fu's daughter's luggage, the orderly wanted to take it, but Xia Jinyuan took it first. He didn't hug his girlfriend immediately, so he had to take his girlfriend's luggage. Seeing that his future father-in-law seemed to have forgotten about him and walked away holding Yi Qian's hand, Xia Jinyuan, who was carrying the luggage, pretended to cough to remind him. Yi Qian was already winking playfully at Xia Jinyuan. Father Fu really forgot. Hearing the cough, Father Fu immediately stopped. "I almost forgot. Little Xia is here too. Say hi." The forgotten Xia Jinyuan smiled and said, "It's okay. We can talk in a car." His future father-in-law chose to forget about him, but his girlfriend didn't. Yi Qian also said, "That's right. We can talk in a car. He's not an outsider. You don't have to be so polite." After saying that, She gave Xia Jinyuan a bright smile. Not an outsider, but a family. Father Fu glanced at his daughter, who was helping the brat wholeheartedly. Other than being obedient, what else could he do? He still had to give face to his daughter. That's fine. It's a bit far from your unit. Don't waste time outside. We can talk in the car. Father Fu saw that he had 4 bags in his hands and asked the orderly to take 2. Since his girlfriend's luggage was not given, Lieutenant Colonel Xia gave his own to the orderly. Yi Qian smiled and pursed her lips to hold back her laughter. Her Captain Xia was really very stingy. When Father Fu saw this, he didn't know what to say. This kid with a family Xia is really hard to hate. He doted on and spoiled his daughter like she was a treasure. As a father, he saw this and felt happy in his heart. He was very relieved to hand his daughter over. But sometimes he felt stifled. His daughter was wholeheartedly devoted to him. No matter how much he wanted to test her, he had no idea where to start. It wasn't easy for them to get a chance to test him. They even chatted with their future in-laws. They all agreed that Yi Qian was still young and that it would be better to go there later. In the end, he hadn't seen the results of the test yet, but the brat had followed him to the northwest with his luggage. He was even in the same unit as his daughter. Father Fu, who had a complicated look in his eyes, decided not to look anymore. He continued to chat with Yi Qian. Xia Jinyuan glanced at Yi Qian with a smile and walked beside him obediently with his luggage, listening to his girlfriend and future father-in-law chat happily. Can you send us to the base? That's great. We don't have to meet up at the military depot. I'll have to inform the military depot in advance. We agreed that we would all be sent there by the military depot. Father Fu smiled. No need. The military depot already knows. Just follow me. He turned to look at Xia Jinyuan, who was following closely but keeping a decent distance. Bring him along, too. Bring Captain Xia along. Yi Qian leaned back slightly and looked at Xia Jinyuan, who was walking behind Father Fu. Are you specially sending me there? Aren't you afraid of being scolded by the boss? Chapter 48:27. Father Fu immediately heard that Yi Qian was completely unaware of this matter. He was even more certain that Xia Jinyuan had indeed received the notice last night and was not deliberately arranged. Let him explain to you in the car. The car is in front. Are you hungry? Do you want to eat something to fill your stomach? Yi Qian shook her head. I'm not hungry. She then asked if they had to hurry through the night. The orderly answered for Father Fu and smiled. Senior official only has 2 days of leave. He needs to return to the base at 5 p.m. tomorrow, so he can only hurry through the night. Don't worry. I promise to return to the base safely. The distance from Dun City to her reporting unit was more than 500 kilometers. Dun City had a long sunshine time, so 8 p.m. was about the same as 5 p.m. in Xiang City. There was no need to rush. She could still rest at the unit tonight, but, holding Father Fu's hand, Yi Qian whispered, Dad, don't send me off. I'll stay at the military station tonight. You can accompany me at the military station. Since you were young, Dad has never sent you off. This time, give Dad a chance. I asked the military station. You will depart at 12 p.m. tonight, so I might as well send you there in advance. Father Fu really wanted to send them off. In addition to the time at the military station and the arranged car, Father Fu wanted to send them off even more. Yi Qian still wanted to persuade, but Xia Jinyuan smiled and said, We'll have to trouble Uncle Fu. As he spoke, he slightly shook his head at Yi Qian, indicating that she should not refuse. When Yi Qian returned home, Old Master Fu, Father Fu, and Devil King Li all felt that the family owed Yi Qian. They tried their best to make up for what they owed her in the past. Therefore, Yi Qian would not change Father Fu's decision no matter how much she tried to persuade him. Yi Qian nodded and accepted Xia Jinyuan's persuasion. Dad, you only have 2 days of leave. It's been hard on you to send you off. Silly girl, what's so hard about it? This time, Dad will send you over. I'm afraid that by the time you leave the Northwest region, we won't be able to see each other again. The base's anti-air missiles were about to enter the testing phase, and it was also the most crucial moment. Father Fu probably wouldn't even have a day of rest, and all his rest would be when he closed his eyes to sleep. When they arrived at the front of the Jeep, Father Fu glanced at the front passenger seat and said to Xia Jinyuan, who had put away his luggage, "You sit in the front first. I'll change seats with you later." Although the stinky brat was an eyesore, he wasn't an unreasonable elder who liked to make things difficult for the younger generation. He still had to give the youngsters the proper time to interact with each other. If he didn't give it to her, his daughter would have a problem with it. Yi Qian, who was already sitting in the back seat, blushed when he heard this. The thick-skinned Xia Jinyuan readily replied, "Okay, let me know when the time comes." "Okay." Father Fu nodded and got into the car first. Even if he wanted to make things difficult for the stinky brat, he would know when to stop. As for Xia Jinyuan, he naturally knew that settling his future father-in-law wasn't something that could be done overnight. His future father-in-law originally had a good impression of him, but the bad thing was that he had taken away Yi Qian too early, causing his future father-in-law to worry that his daughter would get married and have children too early. He understood all of this, and because he understood, he knew how to make things even better. The elders of both parties had already met, so no matter how anxious he was, he wouldn't be too anxious. After settling his future father-in-law and getting the beauty back, he naturally had to be patient and slowly win over his future father-in-law. Xia Jinyuan was a very patient hunter. For the sake of Yi Qian, he strived for perfection so that when Yi Qian married him, she wouldn't feel burdened and would marry him happily. He also hoped that his future father-in-law would be able to be at ease and hand over his precious daughter to him with a smile on his face. If both families were happy, then it would be perfect. Chapter 48:28. It was more than 560 kilometers from the train station in Dun City to the base, and the highway was nearly 300 kilometers long. It was not easy to drive by 200 kilometers, and the journey would take a lot of time. It would take about 6 hours to reach the base. Xia Jinyuan, who was sitting in the front passenger seat, listened to the father and daughter talking softly in the back seat. His handsome face was smiling the entire time, and he did not reveal anything strange. The father and daughter had not seen each other for more than 2 years. Now that they finally had some time to meet, they should have a good chat. Besides, didn't his future father-in-law say that he would get out of the car halfway to stretch before changing seats? He calculated the time. It was a 6-hour journey, and his future father-in-law took up 3 hours. By the time he changed seats, the sky was already dark, and the car, it was naturally very dark. In the dark, how could his future father-in-law see clearly when he held his girlfriend's hand, put his arm around her waist or shoulder? Most importantly, when he got tired of chatting, his future father-in-law would definitely close his eyes and rest. The next 3 hours would all belong to him. Besides, his future father-in-law would be rushing back to the base tomorrow, while he would be able to see him every day. Compared to his future father-in-law, he was much luckier. His future father-in-law and his little fox had only been together for a little over a month. It had to be said that Lieutenant Colonel Xia's calculations were brilliant. When you get to the base, listen to the advice of your seniors. Don't be stubborn and don't look down on the soldiers just because you are highly educated. Your education and military rank are high, but the soldiers are more experienced than you, so you must treat them with respect. Of course, you must be strict when necessary. The base is still a place of iron discipline, and you must not mess up the discipline. Dad can't stay with you for too long. I have to report back to the base tomorrow at 5 o'clock. However, your base is in the same direction as mine, so I can visit you anytime during the holidays. Lieutenant Colonel Xia, who had been scheming ahead, couldn't help but straighten his back. In the same direction? His future father-in-law's base was in the same direction as his base. Straightening his back, Lieutenant Colonel Xia knew that he had been too optimistic. Extreme joy begets sorrow. This meant that he would have many opportunities to see his future father-in-law in the next 6 months. Yi Qian was quite happy. Hearing this, his eyes lit up. Really? That's great. Dad, can I visit you during the holidays? Father Fu laughed. Haha, that won't do. Our base prohibits family visits. The families of the soldiers in the base don't even know where we are. Visiting relatives is something that has never happened before. His daughter wanted to do it, but the rules were strict. Even though he was the chief engineer of the base and had a military rank of major general, he could not break the rules. Yi Qian was disappointed. He said sullenly, "So strict. Looks like I can only wait for your holidays." "My dear daughter, don't expect too much from Dad when he comes out during the holidays. I'll be a little busy from now on, so I don't know if I'll take a break or not." In the front row, Xia Jinyuan, with his back straight and a slightly nervous expression, slowly exhaled and instantly relaxed. The disappointment on Yi Qian's face deepened. "Before I came here, I thought that the Northwest would be very close to you. It's very close now, but I can't go over to visit you. No matter how close it is, it's useless. Silly daughter, Dad is already very satisfied to be able to send you to the base this time." Father Fu saw that his daughter was a little sad, so he changed the topic. "You remember what Dad said just now, right? If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask Yuan. He has leadership experience and knows more than you." Chapter 48-29. Since the two of you are in the same unit, it will be very convenient for you to meet and discuss things. Remember not to make hasty decisions when you are not confident. It's best to ask Yuan. Yuan. The corners of Xia Jinyuan's mouth curled up. He used to call his future father-in-law by his full name. He turned his head and smiled. "Uncle Fu, don't worry about these things. I will be watching from the side. But sometimes, it's okay to make a small mistake. Just treat it as learning from your mistakes and summing up your experience. This way, you'll be more experienced in handling things." Yi Qian smiled and said, "Dad, don't worry about me. Yesterday, he even taught me for a few hours. He was afraid that I wouldn't be able to control the soldiers and establish my authority. So he taught me all his years of experience. Now I know what to do." "That's good. With the two of you supporting each other, I feel much more at ease." Father Fu nodded and the smile in his eyes deepened. After that, Father Fu did not talk about what Yi Qian should do when he went to the military. He had already reminded him of what he should do, so he had to rely on himself for the rest of the journey. When the topic changed to military school and life, Xia Jinyuan tactfully retreated and did not interrupt easily. Although Father Fu was chatting with Yi Qian the whole time, he was actually looking at Xia Jinyuan from the corner of his eyes from time to time and secretly observing if he was dissatisfied with anything. Seeing that his future son-in-law listened with a smile the whole time and did not interrupt casually or to try to find topics to talk about, Father Fu was a little more satisfied with this future son-in-law of his who was going to marry his precious daughter. In the whole of Beijing, there was no other young man who was as good as this kid from a family Xia. Most importantly, he was a good match for his daughter, and they were in love with each other. They knew each other and understood each other. Xia Jinyuan was an open-minded person and understood filial piety. This was also something that Father Fu was very satisfied with. Lieutenant Colonel Xia, who was fearful of his future father-in-law, did not know that he had been trying to curry favor with him the whole time. He did not dare to relax at all and was well-behaved. Sometimes, when Yi Qian asked him something, Lieutenant Colonel Xia, who always knew how to please his elders, would always put Yi Qian first. When he looked at Yi Qian, the tenderness in his eyes made Father Fu uncomfortable. In short, when facing his future father-in-law, Lieutenant Colonel Xia's IQ and EQ were both on the line. As for Father Fu, he had originally planned to chat with Yi Qian for an hour or two and then get out of the car to stretch before changing seats. However, for some reason, they suddenly started chatting. The sunshine here was long, and it would be close to 9 p.m. when it got dark. Father Fu's expression changed slightly, and he said to the orderly who was driving seriously, "Xiao Zhang, stop in front." There was a temporary highway parking spot in front of them. The orderly, Xiao Zhang, replied yes. Lieutenant Colonel Xia, who was admiring the unique, rough landscape of the Great Northwest, thought that his future father-in-law wanted to get out of the car to stretch his legs. In the end, he heard his future father-in-law say to him, "You sit in the back. When it gets dark, I'll sit in the back. Your Jane Eyre can sit in the front and put down the seat so you can rest." Lieutenant Colonel Xia was shocked by his future father-in-law's sudden action. The older the ginger, the spicier it was. The abacus that he had been secretly plotting was destroyed by his future father-in-law's gentle touch of his lips. Yi Qian was pure and did not think of anything else. He even said, "You can rest better if you sit in the front. He and I are young and can endure it." Father Fu was made speechless by his daughter's naivety. However, as a father, there were some things that he could not be honest with his daughter. At this time, Father Fu thought of his late wife. If his late wife was still alive, he would not have to hide these things between a man and a woman. Chapter 48:30. Yi Qian was completely defenseless against Xia Jinyuan, which worried Father Fu a lot. Father Fu said earnestly, "Young people should pay more attention to their health. Don't do whatever you want just because you're young. You too can rest. Dad can sit in the back." Yi Qian didn't want Father Fu to worry too much, so he nodded in agreement. What else could Xia Jinyuan say? The devil is 1 foot tall, while the priest is 10 feet tall. My future father-in-law is mighty. When they changed seats, Xia Jinyuan whispered to his girlfriend, "My future father-in-law is too powerful. I can deal with my dad, but I don't dare to deal with my future father-in-law. My little plan will be ruined by him." Yi Qian didn't understand, until Xia Jinyuan said meaningfully, "It's easier to do things when it's dark." Yi Qian, who was very smart, instantly understood. She blushed and glared at the shameless guy. She was afraid that Father Fu would hear her. Her guilty and cute look tickled Xia Jinyuan a little. He couldn't help but smile and rub Yi Qian's head in front of his future father-in-law. Father Fu still turned a blind eye to the intimacy between young couples. He was once young and tried all sorts of ways to coax his lover to come out. But at that time, the world was conservative, and he didn't dare to do anything for fear of being seen by his comrades. It wasn't until they filed a marriage report and confirmed that they were husband and wife that they dared to cross the line. Yi Qian was embarrassed and was afraid that Father Fu would see it. She glared at the man who was making a fuss and waved his hand away. Xia Jinyuan smiled and quickly retracted his hand. Then he gently pinched the tip of Yi Qian's nose. "If you move again, you'll sit in the front." Yi Qian had no choice but to warn him coquettishly. She didn't sound threatening at all. Xia Jinyuan raised his eyebrows. "Can you bear to? What's there to be reluctant about? I'll tell my dad now that you still like to sit in the front. Didn't you see that father-in-law specially arranged it? We can't let down our elders' efforts." Xia Jinyuan was afraid that Yi Qian would say something, so he turned to his Father Fu, who was chatting with the orderly with his back facing him, and said, "Uncle Fu, Jane Eyre and I will get in the car first." Father Fu turned around and glanced at him. Go on, go on." After watching Yi Qian get into the car first, Father Fu and the orderly got into the car together. When they got back to the car, they didn't talk about Yi Qian anymore. Instead, they talked about what happened at the base. The other party has some background. Their equipment is currently the most advanced overseas. They haven't found out the specific location of the base. They have been taking pictures of the scenery and drawing maps under the guise of a professional overseas photography team. The locals don't know anything about it. They really think that they are promoting the local tourism abroad for free and taking the opportunity to improve the local economic situation. If it weren't for the fact that our patrols discovered something strange, they might have really found the base and exposed its exact location. When the incident happened, it attracted the attention of the military and shocked the leaders of the General Assembly Hall. They haven't punished the derelicts and have reinforced the entire defense line. Thinking about what happened not long ago, Father Fu still had a lingering fear in his heart as he talked about it. Who would have thought that the foreign guys would keep an eye on the Northwest and invest a lot of manpower, resources, energy, and financial resources to find their secret base? Xia Jinyuan said with a cold expression, "In recent years, our military strength has been increasingly prominent, and our international status has been rising. We have attracted a lot of attention from the Western countries that are hostile to our country. They often try to smear our reputation. On the surface, they seem to be holding a high flag, but in reality, they are not content with their lot. I'm afraid that there is more than one such team that has entered our country. I wonder if the General Assembly Hall has made any clear arrangements?" Chapter 48:31. When it came to business, Even Xia Jinyuan's sitting posture became extraordinarily upright. Both inside and outside, he exuded a strong military aura, which made the atmosphere in the carriage solemn. Yi Qian restrained his expression and listened attentively without participating. She really didn't know about this. There are clear arrangements and actions. Soon, there will be instructions from the Great Hall to recheck the identities of all foreigners who enter the country, especially those who are mainly photographers and interviewers. Some foreigners who have stayed for too long will also be sent back to the country. We need to act quickly. Before the spies from other countries can react, we need to grasp their movements and deal with them secretly. Speaking of this, Xia Jinyuan's expression was as cold as a machine. He used the most effective and bloody method to solve the problem. Father Fu was probably frightened by his coldness. After a moment of silence, he replied, "Dealing with him on the spot is sometimes troublesome." "It's not troublesome. It depends on how you solve it. Accidents happen every year." Yi Qian stood on Xia Jinyuan's side and nodded. "That's right. No one wants an accident to happen, but it did happen. We can only accept it. Shuku village is near the army base. There are always some restless people who come here every year. Dad, you still don't know, but Captain Xia and I met because we were secretly photographed together by spies." The topic was very suitable to talk about how the two of them met. He didn't give Xia Jinyuan any time to stop him and just said it naturally. Father Fu really didn't know. He only knew that Yi Qian was taken care of by Uncle Jin back then. Later on, he met Xia Jinyuan. Father Fu always thought that Yi Qian met Xia Jinyuan because of Uncle General Father Fu was stunned by the sudden news. "There's such a fate? Why didn't I hear you two talk about it before?" Xia Jinyuan rubbed his forehead. His little fox, this time she really tricked him. Back then, little fox was only 14 years old. He once told his future father-in-law that he cared about her after he met her. You didn't mention it? I thought Captain Xia had mentioned it before." She clearly remembered that Captain Xia had once told her how the two of them met. He had even confessed to Father Fu. Lieutenant Colonel Xia, who was showing off his military might, couldn't sit still. He cleared his throat and answered on behalf of his girlfriend. That year, Jane Eyre had an urgent matter and needed to go to the neighboring village, so she took the nearest mountain road. Unexpectedly, we encountered a few suspicious people with camera equipment trying to pass through the defensive line, and we happened to be chasing after them. After we accidentally bumped into Jane Eyre, it was Jane Eyre who led us that we quickly found a few suspicious people. Father Fu's expression became thoughtful, as if he was recalling something. Yi Qian tilted his head and asked Xia Jinyuan, "I didn't even ask you how you dealt with him. He's still in prison, sentenced to life imprisonment. For the crime of espionage, if the circumstances were less serious, the punishment would be 3 to 10 years in prison. The few of them had conclusive evidence and exported a large number of photos abroad. If the circumstances were more serious, they would be sentenced to life imprisonment. That's how it should be. It's equivalent to treason." Yi Qian felt that the punishment was fair. Father Fu, who had a solemn expression on his face, waited for the two of them to finish speaking before he said in a deep voice, "So, when my daughter was 14 years old, you already had designs on her." When Yi Qian suddenly mentioned how the two of them met, Xia Jinyuan had a premonition that he was going to be tortured by his future father-in-law again. Since he had already said it, it would be even worse if he continued to hide it. Yuan turned into brat and instantly fell from his high position. Yi Qian then realized that he had caused trouble for his man by suddenly opening his mouth. Chapter 48-32. She immediately became well-behaved after getting into trouble. With Captain Xia's EQ, she would definitely be able to coax her father out of his gloomy mood. Xia Jinyuan replied with a straight face. The 14-year-old Jane Eyre was very skinny and very energetic. In the face of a group of suspicious people armed with knives who were likely to hurt people, he was still able to maintain his composure and escape from their hands. In the end, he was quite calm and led us to capture the suspicious people as quickly as possible. All these performances left a deep impression and are hard to forget. When he mentioned the 14-year-old Yi Qian, Xia Jinyuan, who was quite eloquent, looked at Father Fu as if he was a rivet. Within 5 seconds, Father Fu's gaze had become exceptionally kind. Father Fu even thought of his late wife and sighed with nostalgia. She was just like your mother. She looked gentle and weak, but in fact, she had big ideas and was quite strong-willed. Xia Jinyuan smiled and said, "The 14-year-old Jane Eyre's performance was extraordinary. My uncle intended to train Jane Eyre towards the military. Because she helped the army to successfully catch the spy, she is now here to train female soldiers to catch the spy. It's quite mysterious." Yi Qian interrupted, "It's quite mysterious. I didn't expect her to be interested in joining the military. I guess she was influenced by you at that time." Father Fu had a headache. His silly daughter was siding with the family Xia boy again. Father Fu rubbed his chest and patted it, which attracted the attention of the orderly. "Are you not feeling well? Do you want to lie down and rest for a while?" "I'm fine. You drive." Father Fu, who was choked by his daughter, could only pinch his nose and accept it. Yi Qian breathed a sigh of relief. He had finally helped Captain Xia this time. If Father Fu could see through Yi Qian's thoughts, he would definitely be angry again. What this time? It was clearly this time. It was futile to bring up the past. Father Fu saw how nervous Yi Qian was. Father Fu, who couldn't bear to part with his daughter, could only change the topic. "How did you know that Jane Eyre was leading the team to train her to catch spies? Women are often more suited for meticulous work. Moreover, after the incident at the base, the military immediately assigned Jane Eyre to the Northwest to train female soldiers. I received the assignment order, and the reason was mentioned. It's easy to guess." Yi Qian couldn't help but take another look at him. No wonder the commander-in-chief and Major General Yang couldn't do anything to him. Just based on his nimble mind, which could easily draw inferences from one instance, no one could compare to him. It had to be said that Yi Qian was close to the truth. It was precisely because Xia Jinyuan was a headache for Major General Yang and Commander-in-Chief Xia that they urgently needed a capable person to suppress Xia Jinyuan. This capable person was none other than Yi Qian. People in the military couldn't fall in love. Xia Jinyuan was a special case, so he could only be treated differently. Father Fu couldn't help but look askance at him. This kid from a family Xia wasn't simple. Originally, all female soldiers weren't supposed to enter the Northwest for training. Instead, they were supposed to go to the Nangguang military district. However, there were 2 Western women involved in the incident, which made the situation a little complicated. The leaders in the conference hall immediately called for a meeting. After the meeting, the military immediately made a decision. All female soldiers who were supposed to go to the Nangguang military district will be transferred to the Northwest. The first female Special Forces team would be established in the Northwest. At the moment, it couldn't be called a Special Forces team. They would only know after 6 months or a year of training. On the other hand, Yi Qian, as the person involved, didn't know anything. After listening, he instantly felt a heavy responsibility on his shoulders. It was heavier than before. No wonder Captain Xia said that if they didn't listen to him, they should use their real abilities. So this was the biggest reason. These female soldiers weren't supposed to come to the Northwest. Now that they were suddenly transferred to the Northwest, they probably felt uncomfortable. They came with emotions. As an instructor, she had a headache. Chapter 48-33. Yi Qian, who had shouldered such a heavy responsibility, had a slightly solemn expression on her face as she thought about the female soldiers who had come from all over the country to the Northwest to become part of the Northwest Army. She casually raised her hand and rubbed her temples. Her completely unconscious action caused Xia Jinyuan to look over. Father Fu knew how heavy the responsibility his daughter Yi Qian shouldered was, but for Father Fu, it was not difficult for him to solve a problem that could be resolved easily with the full support of the military and the Great Hall. Handing over such a heavy responsibility to his daughter, Yi Qian proved the military's trust in her and that she would not betray this trust. However, Yi Qian was still young and inexperienced. Sometimes, she would not be able to immediately come up with a solution when faced with a difficult problem. It was very likely that she would not be able to control the entire unit and convince the soldiers. She was capable, but the only disadvantage was her lack of experience. Father Fu was just about to say something when his gaze swept past Xia Jinyuan's face. He saw that the young lieutenant colonel was calm and composed. The calmness between his eyebrows stemmed from his inner confidence. It was this confidence that allowed him to be so calm and collected. With a slight lift of his hand, he could make a problem that others thought was difficult become very simple in his hands. Family Xia had the confidence that he was the only one in the world who looked down on everything in the world, and that everything was in the palm of his hand. In that instant, Father Fu understood why the military had transferred Family Xia to the Northwest Army, and why he was in the same unit as his daughter Yiqian. It was not for any other reason, but because his daughter was inexperienced and needed someone to guide her. For a moment, Father Fu felt somewhat emotional. In order to nurture his daughter, the military had really put in a lot of effort and arranged everything well. In other words, as long as his daughter did not make any mistakes and was able to shoulder the responsibilities on her shoulders, her entire military career would be much smoother than his. Correspondingly, the heavier the responsibility, the greater the danger. Father Fu's soft sigh came from the quiet carriage. There was not much space in the carriage, and no one was talking. Although Father Fu's sigh was soft, it was clearly heard by everyone. When Yiqian saw this, he knew that he had made Father Fu worry. He put aside the heavy stone in his heart and comforted his father instead. "Dad, I didn't even sigh." "You shouldn't sigh. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. Although I'm inexperienced, I can still cross the river by touching the stones. No one could do it easily at the beginning. There is always a process." Even Captain Xia used to have headaches, but later on, the entire team was taken care of by him. "I'm just a little bit worse than Captain Xia, and I might take a little longer than Captain Xia, but I'm still confident in myself." Xia Jinyuan smiled elegantly. "Uncle Fu, Jane Eyre and I are both in the same unit. Since the higher-ups have transferred me to the Northwest, I'm sure you've already guessed the reason. If that's the case, you can rest assured that we will solve any problems that we may encounter in the future. She's inexperienced, and although I can't say that I'm experienced, I still have some experience. If she encounters any problems, the two of us will discuss and solve them together. We've worked together many times, and Jane Eyre was the backbone of the company when she was in school. She has already accumulated a certain amount of experience. It's just that the environment is different now, so the rules will remain the same." At this moment, Father Fu's emotions were complicated as he was comforted by his juniors. Since his daughter was wearing the military uniform with heavy responsibilities, he hoped that his daughter would be able to make a difference and not just muddle through. However, he also hoped that his daughter's life would be smooth and peaceful. Sigh. Chapter 48-34. He then looked at his son with Family Xia. He was even more willing to chase his daughter all the way to the Northwest. He was annoyed and worried about his daughter, and his words were full of approval and support for his daughter. He was more decisive, bold, and understood his daughter better than his father. Mr. Fu was worried that the Xia family son would take away his only daughter as soon as possible, but he also admired the Xia family son's devotion to his daughter. After sighing, Mr. Fu raised his hand to rub his temples and said to his lover sitting behind him, "I'm worse at leading soldiers than you are. You two can talk and see what to do next." He looked at Xia Jinyuan. "The team you're leading is the security company in charge of patrolling the base. They're all good, but they're still far from being as good as you. You have to train them well. They're in charge of all the security around the base. If anything happens, they'll be heavily punished. I have a few requirements for the two of you, and I hope you can remember them. First, you can't be too close to each other. Don't let people talk about you and ruin your own future. I believe you can do this." "You" was referring to Xia Jinyuan. Father Fu was currently staring at Xia Jinyuan. While he was talking to him, his son, who was sitting by the window, had moved to the back of the middle seat. As for his daughter, Sai, she had also moved to the middle. The two of them were shoulder to shoulder, squeezing together. The seats on both sides were empty. Lieutenant Colonel Xia, who was sitting close to them, nodded seriously. "Uncle Fu, don't worry. I know what to do. Men with Family Xia are loyal and keep their promises. I believe in you. Xia Jinyuan secretly pinched Yi Qian's little finger. His future father-in-law was much more difficult to deal with than old man Xia. He was too difficult to deal with. If he wasn't careful, he could suddenly dig a hole and flatter him. If he wanted to take it back, he would have to slap himself in the face. If he couldn't take it back, he could only accept it and thank him. You're too kind. Father Fu waved his hand. You're worthy of it. I've seen and remembered how well you treat Jane Eyre. It's just that sometimes... Forget it. Let's talk about serious matters. It was just that sometimes when he thought about how his daughter had just returned to his side and had married someone else and become his daughter-in-law, he felt sad just thinking about it. Xia Jinyuan's unfinished words to his future father-in-law seemed to have been enlightened. He finally understood why his future father-in-law had set him up from time to time. He was also helpless about his future father-in-law's heartache. He also wanted to have the best of both worlds, but he really couldn't. He then smiled and said, "You are still several decades away from retirement, and old Mister is already old. You have the heart, but not the strength. As Jane Eyre's boyfriend, it's my duty to protect her. When you retire in the future, Jane Eyre and I will be at a critical juncture in our careers. At that time, I'm afraid you'll have to protect our children." Yi Qian. He almost choked. They weren't married yet, but Captain Xia was not only thinking about what would happen 10 years later, but he was also thinking about who to let take care of the children. When that time came, he didn't even know if she would have time to get pregnant and have children. He cursed in his heart, but didn't say it out loud. His intuition told him that Captain Xia wouldn't say such things for no reason. He must have other plans. In this plan, Yi Qian remained silent and decided not to be a burden to his man. His gaze fell on Father Fu's face. Then he saw Father Fu's excited face. Even his voice was trembling as he replied, That's right. You're thinking very far ahead. Now, you'll protect Jane Eyre. After I retire, I'll protect my grandson." Good. The three goods in a row showed how excited Father Fu was. Chapter 48:35. Xia Jinyuan said, "Thank you, Uncle Fu. It's Uncle Fu now, Dad in the future." Father Fu finally admitted that he would be Xia Jinyuan's father-in-law after being coaxed by his unborn grandson. Xia Jinyuan secretly squeezed Yi Qian's hand and was overjoyed. It wasn't easy at all. Why didn't he think of his future father-in-law's fickleness? If he had thought of it earlier, he wouldn't have looked like he was facing an enemy every time he saw him. Yi Jian was convinced. A child, a grandson, something that was still unknown, had miraculously eliminated her father's discomfort with Captain Xia. She was convinced. She was really convinced by Captain Xia. "Dad, you just said a few things we need to pay attention to." If she didn't say anything, she was afraid that her father would ask her to get married and have children immediately. Faced with his girlfriend who would always drag him down at crucial moments, Colonel Xia could only feel helpless. He squeezed the soft and powerful hand of a woman. There was no hurry. He would seize the opportunity to properly punish the disobedient little fox. After being reminded, Father Fu also felt that he was overjoyed. He cleared his throat and said the few things they still needed to pay attention to. The sun was setting outside the car. The jeep that had already entered the Gobi Basin was bathed in the golden sunlight as it drove forward. The scenery by the roadside was endless. There was even a herd of wild camels eating and strolling on the left side of the car. The atmosphere in the car was leisurely, and there was laughter from time to time. As the instructor, Yi Qian had already rushed to the unit in advance. Dun City's military depot had already welcomed the 17th and 18th female soldiers. The two female soldiers arrived at the depot one after the other. The first 17 female soldiers were still registering. The 18th female soldier carried the same equipment and entered the depot. The person who received all the female soldiers was an officer from the station. Hearing a crisp reporting, the officer looked up from the form and smiled. "Please come in and fill out the two forms. The two of you arrive at the same time. You will sleep in the same room tonight." The military depot had limited accommodations. There were no single rooms. The best accommodation was 4 people to a room. The male soldiers were all given 8 people to a room. The female soldiers were given more consideration and were given 4 people to a room. After the officer finished speaking, the female soldier who filled in the emoji even sounded a little cold. Reporting, "I would like to apply for a change of room." The female soldier who filled in the form spoke, and the female soldier who walked in stopped in her tracks. The corner of her mouth curled up coldly, and she also said to the officer, "Report, I also want to change my room." When the officer heard this, he knew that something was wrong. Seeing this, he did not ask any more questions and said indifferently, "The conditions of the military depot are limited, and there are no other options. There are already 16 female soldiers in front of you, and none of them have requested to change rooms. Do you want to be special?" He could take care of the female soldiers, but it was not within his scope to take care of such problems that were obviously personal. In the future, the two of them would be comrades fighting side by side in the same company. Personal emotions could not be brought into the company. The more personal emotions there were, the better it would be for the two of them to get along. The 2 female soldiers stopped talking at the same time. They didn't want to have any special treatment. The female soldier who filled in the form quickly finished the last few items with a cold face. She put down the pen and handed it to the officer. The officer handed the key with the room number to the female soldier. "3rd floor. Go in from the left. Turn left and you'll see it." "Thank you." After taking the key, the female soldier picked up the camouflage bag by her feet and turned to leave. The angle of the turn was a little big, and the female soldier who walked in was just about to bend down and put down the camouflage bag. Her shoulder was directly hit by the bag in the other party's hand. She was not prepared, and her whole body was knocked back. Chapter 48:36. Yi Qian and the others entered the military zone at 10 p.m. The sentries at the first line of defense saw the headlights coming from afar. There were 6 sentries on both sides of the line of defense, and they immediately got ready for battle. The hidden infrared cameras on both sides had already scanned the moving vehicles. The images were input, and the sentries immediately knew how many people were in the vehicles. When the vehicles arrived, they had the right to carry guns for inspection. The sentries in bulletproof vests raised their hands to signal for the vehicles to stop and cooperate with their routine inspection. This was a military zone, and it was also the first checkpoint where all vehicles entering the restricted military zone had to stop for inspection. During the day, Father Fu had passed by here. One of the sentries checked the documents, while another stood guard with a gun. Everyone in the vehicles got out of the vehicles, including Father Fu, who was a major general. They saluted each other. The sentries first checked Father Fu's documents and returned them after confirming that there were no issues. They then saluted to show their respect for the chief. Father Fu took the documents and returned the salute. He smiled and said, "Young comrade, thank you for your hard work. Thank you for your concern, Chief. It's not hard at all. It's what I should do." The young sentries replied energetically. They then checked the documents of the orderlies, Xia Jinyuan and Yi Qian one by one. They then checked the vehicles one by one. After confirming that there were no problems and that they were not carrying any weapons, the sentries put away their guns and stood at attention. They then turned to the side to let the vehicles pass. After the vehicles passed the first checkpoint, Father Fu smiled at Yi Qian, who had just woken up. He said, "This is a military zone. Outsiders and vehicles can still pass through here. 40 kilometers further in, it's a restricted military zone. All outsiders and vehicles are prohibited from entering. The further in you go, the stricter it gets." The base was deep in, so it had to be strict. Xia Jinyuan smiled and said, "A few years ago, when we entered the Northwest for training, the base you were was close to our restricted area. The safe zone is 50 kilometers away from the base. Once you enter within 50 kilometers of the base, you might face the risk of being killed." That's right. It's still the same. Although the unit you're heading to is mainly responsible for guarding and patrolling the base, you're also prohibited from entering within 10 kilometers of the base. Yi Qian sighed and said, "So, even if you're only 30 kilometers away from me, it's still difficult for me to see you." "Ha ha, daughter. Let's change the topic." Father Fu laughed and changed the topic to Xia Jinyuan. Do you often change your training location? Where have you been to train? Uncle Fu, you should be asking if there are any places we haven't been to. Xia Jinyuan naturally accepted his future father-in-law's request for help and quickly changed the topic to Yi Qian's upcoming training. The jeep with its headlights on continued to drive along the winding road, passing through the undulating Gobi barren mountains. The stars in the sky were resplendent, and the Milky Way crossed the firmament. The Big Dipper, shaped like a spoon, had always been in front of the carriage. It had been bright since ancient times, watching the countless fires of war in the human world and experiencing the vicissitudes of life. At Beijing's Capital International Airport, a young woman dressed in a dignified and professional manner was pulling the password machine used for business trips. She was walking in high heels and seemed to be chasing after someone. In front of the woman was a tall and slender figure. He was at least 8 meters tall and wore a light gray slim-fit suit that outlined a man's excellent figure. Broad shoulders, narrow hips, and long legs. His proportions seemed to be favored by the heavens. Even though she hadn't seen his face, just his back was enough to make her gaze linger. Chapter 48:37. His strides were huge. Every step he took was equivalent to 2 steps of others. Du Yijia, who was dragging the suitcase, finally had to run. The sound of high heels behind him was getting closer and closer. Qin Xiu, who was pulling the suitcase with one hand and talking on the phone with the other, was also getting bigger and bigger. She's out. You can park the car outside. Ask Xiao Lu to send my colleague back to her home. If she doesn't know the route, let her lead the way herself. Well, I'm going back to Dangue Garden. Xiao Lu will pick her up. Okay, 5 minutes left. Well, thank you. After ending the call, Qin Xiu turned a deaf ear to the footsteps chasing him. He walked on his own, letting the person behind him chase him all the way. The passengers coming and going could tell at a glance that the young, beautiful, and extraordinarily elegant woman was chasing after someone. There was even a male passenger who was protective of the fairer sex, who kindly reminded Qin Xiu, "Sir, your friend has been chasing you." "Thank you." He thanked her indifferently, but his footsteps didn't stop. He directly brushed past the strange male passenger. Of course, he knew that someone was chasing him, but he didn't want to be caught by her. Nearly 18 hours of flying had already given him a headache. If they kept going together, he would suffocate. Du Jiai, who was chasing all the way, was also stubborn. She gritted her teeth and kept running. She didn't raise her voice to ask Qin Xiu to stop and wait for her, because she knew that Qin Xiu wouldn't wait for her even if she didn't ask. Anyway, it would only embarrass her. If he was in a hurry, she would run. She didn't believe that she couldn't catch up with him. The air conditioner in the airport was very strong. Even so, Du Jiai's back and forehead were sweating. Seeing Qin Xiu walking faster and faster, she was worried that she couldn't catch up with him. She couldn't sit in the same car as him. She gritted her teeth, took the high heels in her hand, and ran barefoot. Without the sound of high heels, Qin Xiu thought that the other party had given up. He was slightly relieved and slowed down his pace. 2 minutes later, Qin Xiu suddenly felt something was wrong. He wanted to walk in a hurry again, but his sleeve was tightly held by a white and slender hand. She smiled and said, "Qin Xiu, Annie has something to say to you." He passed the phone to her. Qin Xiu furrowed his eyebrows and glanced at the approaching phone. His eyebrows were cold. "No, thank you." He didn't even want to take her phone. Du Jiai's expression changed slightly. She put the phone to her ear and said to Mother Qin with a smile, "Auntie, Qin Xiu said that he would call you." "Yes, I'm with him." "Ah, send me home?" Her bright eyes were already looking at Qin Xiu. She smiled and said, No, Auntie. We've been on the plane for 18 hours. I'm tired. You don't have to send me home." Mrs. Qin said something to Du Jiai, but she seemed to be in a difficult position. "Auntie, why don't you talk to Qin Xiu?" "Okay, bye, Auntie." After the call ended, her hand was still tightly holding Qin Xiu's sleeve. She waved the phone and frowned slightly. She pretended to be in a difficult position. "What should I do?" "Auntie asked you to send me home. If you don't, Andy said that you should take me to your house to sleep for the night and send me home tomorrow. How about? Before she could finish, Chin Xiu interrupted her with a cold expression. Miss Du, your actions have caused me a lot of trouble in my life. No, it's not just trouble, it's a nuisance to my life. Miss Du, please have the modesty of a girl. Thank you. This sentence was so serious that Du Jia almost couldn't keep the smile on her face. Chapter 48:38. Du Ji had heard such words too many times, so much so that she became immune to them and turned a deaf ear to them. Her hand was still grabbing Chin Xiu's cuff. Her beautiful eyes moved, and she smiled faintly. Chin Xiu, sometimes it's not because I'm not reserved enough, but because the adults are pressuring me. Also, you and I are unmarried. You can refuse my pursuit, but you can't stop me from pursuing you. This is your freedom. A buzzing sound came from Chin Xiu's phone. Chin Xiu, who was elegant and handsome, took out his phone and looked at the caller ID. His cold eyes flashed with coldness. His slender fingers pressed the answer button. The caller was Mother Chin. She smiled and said, Xiu, Ji is coming back with you. You see, it's getting late. As a gentleman, you have two choices. Send Ji home, or take her back to our house. Mom hopes that you can take Ji back to our house. She's tired from the 10-hour flight. Going back and forth is a waste of time. It's better to Mom. I'll accompany Grandpa and Grandma tonight. Chin Xiu directly ignored Mother Chin's choice. He spat out the words coldly and hung up the phone without giving Mother Chin a chance to say another word. His cold eyes swept toward Du Ji, whose expression gradually froze. Miss Du, the ministry will arrange a driver to send you home directly. As for my family, Miss Du, as an unmarried woman, it's too frivolous for you to casually stay at an unmarried man's house. Looking down, Chin Xiu glanced at his cuff that was grabbed by the other party. Although there were people coming and going around, he had always maintained his gentlemanly demeanor. He swung his arm and pulled his cuff out of Du Ji's hand. Seeing that the cuffs of his white shirt were wrinkled, Chin Xiu's brows furrowed. He didn't like to have too much contact with people. Even if they were talking, he would maintain the best diplomatic distance and wouldn't easily take a step closer. Du Ji, who joined the Chinese embassy in Melbourne a year and a half ago to become a recorder, had touched a mind several times. Chin Xiu went from being indifferent to completely ignoring her. If it wasn't for work, even if they worked in the same embassy, he wouldn't have spoken a word to Du Ji. However, because of Mother Chin, Chin Xiu would hear Du Ji's name on the phone from time to time. Even though Chin Xiu had already fled abroad, Mother Chin still refused to let him go. She pressed him step by step until she got what she wanted. With Mrs. Chin's support, Du Ji was fearless and kept pressing on, so much so that the staff at the embassy misunderstood the relationship between the two. Chin Xiu's mother's relentless pursuit and Du Ji's relentless pursuit made Chin Xiu angry and helpless at the same time. Pulling back his sleeves, Junyin coldly Chin Xiu walked outside with large strides. He had enough of being pressured for a year and a half. Looking at Chin Xiu's tall and straight back as he left, Du Jia, whose eyes flashed with ruthlessness, ran away again. The man in front of her was an obsession that she couldn't let go of. From the first time she saw Chin Xiu, she knew that he was the perfect lover and husband she wanted. She would spend her whole life chasing after him. Only she, Du Jia, was worthy of Chin Xiu. Only she. Other than her, no one else was qualified to stand beside Chin Xiu and become his wife. Wife? No. Chin Xiu's wife could only be her. Not only was there a deep obsession in her eyes, but there was also a crazy possessiveness. She had no choice but to let go. Instead, she continued to pursue him to the extreme. If it weren't for Mother Chin's support, Du Jia, who had always been arrogant, might have hit a wall repeatedly. Her arrogant self-esteem wouldn't allow her to continue pursuing him. Chapter 48:39. However, with Mother Chin's support, the possessive Du Jia saw hope. The more Chin Xiu rejected her, the more she courageously chased after him. When she ran outside, the ground was no longer smooth and tiled. Her feet hurt a little. Then she saw Qin Xiu walk straight to a black car, open the trunk, and put down the password-locked suitcase. Du Jiai, who knew she couldn't catch up, gritted her teeth, and madness gradually appeared in her eyes. Qin Xiu indeed didn't have a girlfriend, and there was no news about him having sex. She saw it clearly in the past year and a half. He had someone he liked. He definitely had someone he liked. And this person, she curled her lips coldly. When the car started to move slowly, Du Jiai, who was sneering in her eyes, suddenly rushed to the side of the road and blocked the car with her own body. Fortunately, the car was moving slowly, and the driver reacted quickly. When he stepped on the brakes, Qin Xiu, who was sitting in the back seat, was caught off guard and his whole body leaned forward. "What's going on?" he asked. The driver, who had cold sweat on his back, said, "A woman suddenly rushed out to block the car." The driver rolled down the window, stuck his head out, and scolded the woman standing in front of the car. "Are you crazy? Do you want to die? If you don't want to die, don't harm others here." Du Jiai glanced at the rude driver, walked around the front of the car, held the door handle of the back seat with one hand, and tapped the window with the other. "Qin Xiu, I'm going to ask you a few questions. After that, I'll give up on pursuing you." The dim yellow street light shone on her face. Her face, which was in the light and in the dark, became gloomy and unclear. It inexplicably added a bit of coldness to her face, and even her smile was sinister and cold. Qin Xiu glanced at her and ordered the driver, "Drive." "Young Master Qin, you can't drive." This woman's hand kept holding the door, and she deliberately put her legs under the car. "If I drive, I'll crush her legs." Damn, this was the first time he saw such a crazy woman. "How about I get out of the car and take her away?" the driver asked in a low voice. Outside the car, Du Jiai's lips opened and closed, smiling without the slightest bit of impatience. The cars behind them honked, not just one but a series of cars. Qin Xiu, whose face had completely darkened, took a deep breath and suppressed the raging anger in his heart. With cold eyes, he opened the car door and said, "Get in." "Thank you." Du Jiai, who had succeeded, made a V sign to herself in her heart. "Annie still has a way." Du Jiai placed the suitcase in the front seat and slid into the back seat. She brushed her long hair away from her face and turned her head to look at the street lights flashing by outside. Her eyes were fixed on the face of the man who drove her crazy. Her hands were clenched tightly in secret. "Qin Xiu, I know you don't have a girlfriend, and I think I'm pretty good, but I keep running into a wall in front of you. If it wasn't for Andy's support, I would have given up on you long ago. After chasing you for so many years, I'm tired. I don't want to chase you anymore. Since we're back in China, why don't we have a chat? After that, I'll completely let go of you and won't bother you anymore. As for Auntie, I'll make it clear to her personally. I won't put you in a difficult position. How about it? Do you want to talk?" Her voice came briskly. Qin Xiu, who was sitting beside her, was not moved at all. He pursed his lips and ignored her. Du Jiai, who thought she had put her pride in the dust, almost pierced her palms with her nails because of Qin Xiu's ignoring her. She sighed softly and said, "Don't you believe me?" Chapter 4840. I've always been a man of my word. I'm just asking for an answer. Once I'm done, get out of the car immediately. You don't have a girlfriend because you like that military academy student called Yi Qian, right? Du Jiai, who was answering her own questions, stared at the man who treated her like she was invisible. Especially when he mentioned Yi Qian's name, her pupils contracted. She didn't want to miss the slightest change in Qin Xiu's facial expression. The thing that made her fail was that Qin Xiu's handsome face didn't change at all. Yi Qian was just a stranger's name to him. She couldn't see any change in him, but her heart fell into the abyss. The more it was like this, the more certain she was that the man she pursued really liked another woman, and it was the person she hated the most. Yi Qian, it really was her. Qin Xiu really liked her. And he wasn't wrong. Qin Xiu really liked her. The more expressionless he was, the more it meant that she was in his heart. He didn't want her to know that he was protecting Yi Qian. At this moment, Du Jiai's heart was burning with jealousy. It burned her internal organs and caused pain. "Okay, I know even if you don't say it. You like Yi Qian. You didn't say that you were protecting her because you were afraid that I would make things difficult for her. Umph. Qin Xiu, you're underestimating me. I won't lower myself to make things difficult for a mere military academy student. You don't want to admit it, but I know. Annie saw it with her own eyes. Why are you still denying it? I really don't understand what's going on in your heart. Since you like her, why don't you pursue her? Oh, I know. It's because Yi Qian has other men around her, right? That's right. Commander-in-Chief Xia's only son, Xia Jinyuan, likes her. My cousin, Li Jinyan, also likes her. I also know that she used to have a boy named Gao Yang who also liked her. A phoenix flying out of a mountain nest. She's really charming. So many young masters like her, including you. There are 4 of them who like her. Not good at all. Too many people like her. Yi Qian doesn't even know who to pick. Does she not have a boyfriend? If not, I guess it's because it's not easy to choose. Qin Xiu, if you really like her, then go after her. As long as you go after Yi Qian, I will immediately give up. I'm a man of my word. In the car, only Du Jiai could be heard sighing, pondering, and exclaiming. As for Qin Xiu, she was resting with her head on the back seat pillow and her eyes closed, as if no one was beside her. In his heart, he had already laughed coldly several times. He knew very well what Du Jiai was planning in her heart. If he didn't know her character, he might have been deceived by her words tonight. But he knew this woman well. The more he said that he didn't care, the more he cared about it. She wanted to take a step back and trick him into telling her if he really liked Yi Qian. She really thought too highly of herself. A phoenix that flew out a mountain nest. Who was Yi Qian? She was old Master Fu's granddaughter, the daughter of the Fu family. What was the Du family? Qin Xiu, who was resting with his eyes closed, said to the driver, "Send Miss Du home and ask her how to get there." Du Jiai, who still didn't get an answer after talking for a long time, was so angry that her teeth were itching. Seeing this, she could only secretly clench her fist again and use her sharp nails to hurt her palms to restrain herself. No need. Let me out of the car in front. Du Jiai said indifferently. She finally retracted her gaze from Qin Xiu's face and said, "Qin Xiu, I've given up on you. You don't have to avoid me anymore. There's no need." Chapter 48-41. The car stopped. Du Jiai pushed open the door and got out. The chauffeur glanced at Qin Xiu, who was resting with his eyes closed. He quickly got out of the car and took the suitcase from the front passenger seat. From beginning to end, Qin Xiu didn't say a single word to Du Jiai. He only slowly opened his eyes when the car started moving. His calm eyes were filled with emotions. Yi Qian, she was right. The girl he liked was indeed Yi Qian. Why didn't he admit it? Because there was no need to. Who he liked had nothing to do with anyone else. If he admitted it, it was very likely that he would bring trouble to Yi Qian. No, it was very likely that he had already brought trouble to Yi Qian. When he thought of this, Qin Xiu's lips were pursed into a straight line. He didn't think that one day his love would bring trouble to the girl he liked. In the car, Qin Xiu's emotions were fluctuating. Du Jiai, who was standing in the same spot, had already broken several of her fingernails. Yi Qian, a sparrow that flew out of a mountain nest, had actually attracted the hearts of countless young masters from prestigious families. Not only did she seduce one, she seduced another one. Both of them were on her side. Were they all blind? Ying was easily dealt with by her mother, but this Yi Qian was actually fine until now. The man she loved with all her heart actually liked such a woman who wanted to climb up the social ladder and become a phoenix. She was like a social butterfly. Even if it were another young lady from a prestigious family in the capital, she wouldn't be so unwilling. Qin Xiu suddenly transferred back to the country. Was it because of Yi Qian? That's right. It was all because of Yi Qian. That B*TCH graduated from the military academy this year. Under the lamppost, Du Jiai's face was contorted as she gripped the zipper of the lockbox tightly. She clenched her teeth tightly. The viciousness in her eyes was as dark as ink. She couldn't wait any longer. She had to act now. Du Jiai pulled the suitcase to the edge of the greenbelt. First, She called the chauffeur sent by her family to pick her up at the airport. Then, she dialed a number. When the call ended, her cold eyes revealed a chilling, sinister smile. The night grew darker and darker. Even the bustling capital had gradually calmed down, and a certain desert in the distant northwest was so quiet that it was as if the entire universe had entered dreamland. At 1 o'clock in the morning, Yi Qian arrived at the base unit. The sentry let him in. The company commander, who had been waiting all this time, received a call from the sentry. He picked up the camouflage jacket that was draped over the back of the office chair and said to the political commissar, who was still sleeping at the desk opposite him, "Old Tang, get up quickly. They are here." The company's political commissar, Old Tang, woke up with a start. "You're here." "Where's he? Where is it?" "You've only just entered the barracks." "Quick, let's go and pick them up." The instructor for the male soldiers is still okay. The instructor for the female soldiers is the main one. They sent our benefactor, who saved us from the abyss of suffering. Political Commissar Tang stood up and quickly picked up the camouflage jacket. He did not forget to correct the company commander's wrong choice of words. "Wrong. It's not a benefactor. It's an instructor. She graduated from the National Science University like me. What's so great about her? You are 14 years older than her." The company commander sneered disapprovingly. "I don't care where she graduated from or how high her education level is. I just hope that she can get rid of all the female soldiers. Don't leave a mess for me." The resume that she sent over didn't introduce anything. She's a mysterious agent. "Are you looking down on the graduates from the National Science University? Are you looking down on me too?" Political Commissar Tang, who was half a step behind, raised his hand and pushed the company commander's back. The company commander, whose face was tanned by the ultraviolet rays, staggered a few times. "It's not that I'm looking down on her, but I need to see her. I haven't even seen her yet. Do I dare to have high hopes?" The company commander, who had stabilized himself, turned around and stared at his partner. There was a deep worry in his resolute eyes. Chapter 48-42. The company commander, who was pushed by the political commissar, did not dare to walk in front of him anymore. His political commissar, Sai, used to be gentle and easy to bully. He was bullied a lot when he was first assigned to the company, but now it was fine. The general scholar had completely turned into a man from the Northwest. Sometimes, he was even more ruthless than the company commander. Since they graduated from the same military academy, they were considered as fellow disciples. If there was any problem, the political commissar would have full authority to deal with it. As the company commander, he should do as he saw fit. Political Commissar Tang, who was walking to the door, suddenly turned back and picked up the folder on the desk. The company commander, who was standing and waiting, said seriously, "Old Tang, I will leave all the female soldiers to you. You have to pick up the gentleness that you have lost. After all, you are a proper university student. You are not like me, a rough old man. You are better at talking than me, and you will not trick people directly like me. The female soldiers are different from the male soldiers. I don't know what to do with them. If I am not careful, I am afraid that I will be punished. You have to be more careful. I will ask my wife to bring you more local specialties." After coming out of the barracks, the company commander nagged all the way until political commissar Tang glared at him. He said angrily, "What's wrong? Why do I feel so uncomfortable listening to you? Are you looking down on the students from the University of Science and Technology of our country?" The company commander was anxious. Who is the one who is uncomfortable? When did I say that I look down on the students from the University of Science and Technology of our country? I am envious. Don't interrupt me. We will go according to what we discussed before. I will leave all the female soldiers to you. If there's no big problem, don't come to me. You are the political commissar. You can handle it well. Did you see the headlights? They are here. We have an agreement. Old Tang, we can quarrel with the door closed, but we can't embarrass ourselves outside. Okay. You can talk better than me. Go and pick them up. My ears are hurting from your nagging. Political Commissar Tang rubbed his ears. When he opened his mouth again, his expression was very serious, Since the military appointed a fresh graduate as the female soldier instructor, it means that she must have something special. I have also told you countless times, don't look down on her just because she is a fresh graduate and a female soldier. This is a big taboo. Don't tell me that you didn't look down on me. If you really valued me, you wouldn't have repeatedly mentioned that you gave me full authority over the female troops. What are you talking about? If the new female soldier was strong, would you say that? No. You will stick close to me and be as strict as possible. Why didn't you mention the male instructor who was temporarily transferred over? Had he never despised her before? Isn't it because he's here to train the soldiers for you? A male instructor from the Special Forces is here to train the soldiers, and you still think that half a year is too short? Be it female soldiers or male soldiers, since the military has both hands on them, there's no difference in the severity of the situation. Your attitude towards the male soldiers should be the same towards the female soldiers. There must be no distinction between the two, and even more so, there must be no distinction between what is important and what is not. How long has it been since the incident? The military headquarters immediately made arrangements and assigned the 20 female soldiers who were originally assigned to the Nangguang military district to the northwest. If you were a female soldier, what would you think? Temporary adjustments, unconditional obedience. Can the 20 female soldiers really be calm? Honestly speaking, I can't do it either. They are here, but as a company commander, you don't intend to take care of them. What do you think they will think? What will the female instructor who was assigned after graduation think? 3 third-class merits and 2 second-class merits during school. Old Jew, look at how many medals you have in your cabinet. Chapter 48-43. How many medals? Company Commander Zhu snorted. 2 medals more than her. Yes, you have been in the military for more than a decade, but you only have a few medals more than her. What about her? She has 5 medals before she even graduated. Old Jew, do you still dare to look down on female military instructors? I was assigned here 14 years ago and have worked with you until now. You really look down on cadets who graduate from the military academy. When the past was mentioned, Company Commander Zhu touched his nose awkwardly and adjusted his camouflage hat. He smiled and said, "That's all in the past. Let's not talk about it. I really didn't look down on female military instructors. History is repeating itself. It's necessary to mention it. You don't look down on them, but in fact, you have a lot of doubts about their military merits." Political Commissar Tang walked forward. His expression was so serious that Company Commander Zhu felt uneasy. His biggest mistake was that 14 years ago, he looked down on Political Commissar Tang, who had just graduated and was assigned to the Northwest. At that time, he was not Political Commissar Tang, nor was he Old Tang. He was still a fair and clean young man. If he didn't bully him, who else could he bully? Who knew that 14 years later, it would become his biggest mistake? Sigh, what a mistake. As for his doubts about the military merits of female military instructors, he didn't have any big doubts, but he still had some small doubts. For example, how did she get 2 second-class merits while she was still in school? He really wanted to know, but he didn't know if he had the chance to find out. Political Commissar Tang's deep voice came from the cold night wind. Military academy graduates have to undergo military training. Most of them have excellent military skills. If you look down on them, they might look down on you too. How dare they? Company Commander Zhu, who had been silent and was no different from a primary school student, was angry. They dare to look down on us? What right do they have? Political Commissar Tang looked at the angry Company Commander Zhu and said, "Then what right do you have to look down on us?" "Bullshit. When did I look down on you? I'm also a military academy graduate." Company Commander Zhu, who was choking on a mouthful of blood, sighed helplessly. "Old Tang, I promise to treat everyone equally. I won't make any mistakes. Change the topic, change the topic." His heart was so tired. Was every political commissar a genius? If he wasn't careful, he would set a trap for these boorish people. Political Commissar Tang shows a satisfied smile like a loving father, which makes Company Commander Zhu hit his head with both hands several times. This kind of life can't go on. When Yi Qian and Xia Jinyuan got out of the car, they saw a very enthusiastic guest. She was so enthusiastic that even Xia Jinyuan, who was used to big events, was stunned. I'm not used to such enthusiasm. Be careful, it might be a trap. Xia Jinyuan felt the hair on his back stand on end. He immediately whispered to Yi Qian, "Don't agree to whatever conditions he brings up later." Faced with the overly enthusiastic company commander, Xia Jinyuan instinctively thought that there must be something wrong. Yi Qian, on the other hand, didn't feel anything. He replied softly, "You're overthinking it. It's better to be warm than cold. I heard from the instructors that when cadets like us are assigned to the outpost, we will more or less be looked down upon by the veterans. To tell you the truth, I'm already prepared to be looked down upon." Seeing the company commander being so enthusiastic, I feel a lot more at ease. The company commander isn't just anyone. I'm also the female instructor assigned directly by the military. He has no reason to trick me. Xia Jinyuan thought about it and agreed with Yi Qian. That's right. One was the female instructor assigned directly by the military, and the other was the company commander of the female soldiers' company. Although the two of them were superior and subordinate, they had the same goal. They were working hard to train a qualified female soldier squad in the Northwest. Therefore, there was no way there would be a trap. Although this captain with the rank of lieutenant colonel came from the Special Forces, he seemed to be a captain who dealt with things according to his principles. He wouldn't use his military rank to solve problems. Then the following arrangements would be much smoother, and there wouldn't be any friction. Company Commander Zhu and Yi Qian both had 1 bar and 3 stars. They were both captains. Xia Jinyuan had 2 bars and 2 stars. Political Commissar Tang also had 2 bars and 2 stars. This was also why Political Commissar Tang could educate Company Commander Zhu. Political Commissar Tang, who was secretly observing, said to Yi Qian, "I am 14 batches older than you. Since I graduated, I haven't returned to my alma mater. There must be a lot of changes." Before coming, Yi Qian didn't know that Political Commissar Tang had also graduated from the University of Science and Technology of China. When he heard what Political Commissar Tang said, he felt a sense of closeness, and even his words were less restrained. On the way to the dormitory, Political Commissar Tang talked about the female soldiers who would be arriving tomorrow. The female soldiers will all arrive before 2 o'clock tomorrow. Arrange their accommodations and rest for a while before gathering. This is the roster. The names, personalities, and strengths of all the female soldiers are clearly recorded. You can take some time to understand them. 2 of the female soldiers, Gao Xiao and Xiao Tong, are the focus of the reception at the military station. Their relationship is very ordinary. You have to pay more attention to them. Chapter 48-45. Political Commissar Tang's attentiveness dispelled the unfamiliarity of Yi Qian's environment. Since they were from the same alma mater, they unexpectedly got along well despite the age difference. Political Commissar Tang and Yi Qian were both satisfied that they were only a short distance away from the dormitory. Xia Jinyuan and Company Commander Zhu were also very chatty. If it wasn't for the fact that Xia Jinyuan had to wake up in a few hours to meet the male soldiers, Company Commander Zhu would have stayed up late to chat. "Bro, we found the right person this time. You don't know, but 2 years ago, an instructor came to our company and said that he was going to guide us. In the end, he was good at everything, but he lacked real skills. Our company's job is to protect the entire base, but he taught my soldiers lessons every day, brainwashed them, and even ordered them to learn a military song every week. I didn't object to them learning military songs, but he arranged lessons every day and made the teaching materials comprehensive. At that time, I was so angry that I laughed. The battalion commander also had a headache, but in the end, he thought of a way to get this big shot to leave. It was only a short distance, but Company Commander Zhu and Xia Jinyuan were already calling each other brothers. As a lieutenant colonel, Xia Jinyuan's military rank was 2 ranks higher than Company Commander Zhu's. At first, Company Commander Zhu thought that Xia Jinyuan was not easy to get along with and would put on airs. However, after chatting with Xia Jinyuan did not put on airs at all. Instead, Xia Jinyuan was just a practical person. They even got along well with each other when it came to training. As a matter of fact, Company Commander Zhu's initial worries were swept away, and they quickly chatted happily. In Company Commander Zhu's eyes, although the new lieutenant colonel looked refined and handsome, he did not have the aura of a fair-skinned young man. Instead, he had a domineering aura that could be released at will and restrained at will. With one look, he could tell that Xia Jinyuan's confidence was due to his background. This suited his taste. Xia Jinyuan did not treat him as an outsider. Although his military rank was higher than Company Commander Zhu's, he did not have the same military experience. Therefore, Xia Jinyuan still addressed him as Company Commander, out of respect. He should be an officer who was transferred from the General Administration Office. He needs to practice under the company to add a mark on his resume and make plans for the future. He doesn't train all day long and only talks about strategy on paper. If it were me, I would tolerate him for 3 months at most. After 3 months, I will immediately ask him to leave. Ah, that's right. After 3 months, we will politely ask this colleague to leave. Before he leaves, we will hold a farewell party and thank him for his 3 months of hard work. Behind him came Company Commander Zhu's hearty laughter. The moonlight was as cold as water, adding some color to the quiet night. Laughter rang out. Yiqian couldn't help but smile as well. Her Captain Xia was like a fish in water no matter where he went. He could quickly find the most correct position and integrate into the new environment at the fastest speed. This was an advantage that she could learn from. 15 minutes later, Political Commissar Tang and Company Commander Zhu left together. They all lived in the same building. The only difference was the distance between the 2 floors. Yiqian and the female soldiers also lived here. Not far away was the male soldiers' dormitory. There was a regiment of soldiers around the base. A total of more than 1,800 soldiers guarded the entire base together. Yiqian was only a battalion. Including the officers, there were a total of 560 people. Because there had never been female soldiers in the battalion, the dormitory arrangements had been a headache for a long time. In the end, they decided to arrange for the officers' dormitory to temporarily solve the problem. It was only a temporary solution. Just as Political Commissar Tang said to Yiqian, if all 20 female soldiers stayed, the regiment would definitely arrange for another dormitory. Although male and female soldiers were the same, the genders were still different. They had to pay attention to what they needed to pay attention to. Chapter 48-46. As Company Commander Zhu climbed the stairs, he said to Political Commissar Tang, Captain Xia is quite to my liking. No wonder he is the captain of the Special Forces. He is much better than the guy from 2 years ago who only knew how to talk. I think my soldiers will lose a few more layers of skin if they're in his hands. How's the situation on your side? It's not bad to meet him. They had agreed to work together and find out more about the 2 new instructors. Political Commissar Tang smiled and said, he's the same as you. He's also my liking. He's a very down-to-earth captain. He doesn't have the spirit of a scholar. He's much more mature than I was back then. As for the real deal, we'll only know after training. He's very tight-lipped. I can't get anything out of him. He looks young, but he's very secretive. He's not simple. Xia Jinyuan and Yiqian, who were washing up, didn't know that they were being discussed again. Although they were only separated by a wall, they didn't overstep their boundaries. In a few hours, they would be facing the important task assigned by the military, so they temporarily let go of their feelings. More than half of the 20 female soldiers in the military station had insomnia. Even when they fell asleep, they couldn't sleep well. They tossed and turned from time to time. When they woke up the next day, almost everyone didn't sleep well. The departure time was 7 o'clock in the morning. Even if they didn't sleep the whole night, they still had to wake up. Military trucks were sent to pick up the female soldiers to the barracks. 2 trucks were sent, each carrying 10 people. They stood in 2 teams. They were all dressed in the same army camouflage uniform. They carried backpacks on their backs and carried camouflage bags in their right hands. Gao Xiao and Xiu Tong had a tense relationship. Because they lived together and were in the same car, the other 8 female soldiers in the car could already see that the relationship between the two was tense even before they arrived at the barracks. Since they knew each other, even if they could see that the relationship between the two wasn't good, they didn't ask too much. At most, intentionally or unintentionally, they tried to avoid letting the two speak at the same time. Yi Qian went to bed at 1:40 in the morning. He woke up early in the morning and went to the training ground to watch the male soldiers train. He also saw his man go on stage. In the end, he won 1-on-1, 1-on-2, 1-on-3, and finally 1-on-5. He won with overwhelming excellence and won applause from both inside and outside the training ground. When a veteran faced a strong opponent, the first thing they would do was to resist. That came from the innate courage in their bones. After resisting, they would realize that their skills were indeed inferior, and they would willingly admit defeat. After the battle of attrition, Xia Jinyuan's clean desert camouflage uniform was covered in dust. Company Commander Zhu, who kept cheering, walked to Xia Jinyuan's side and said loudly to the hundreds of soldiers, "What do you think? Are you convinced by your new instructor? Let's just ask you if you're convinced." "Convinced. I'm not convinced." There were those who were convinced and those who were not. It was just a victory in a fight, not a complete victory. Naturally, there would be people who were dissatisfied. When Company Commander Zhu heard a soldier shouting no, he immediately laughed and said, "Those who are convinced, take 3 steps back. Those who are not convinced, stay where they are. 1, 2, 3. After the command was given, Yi Qian saw at least 100 soldiers standing motionless on the field, where the dust was so thick that it blurred his vision. Feeling that he was standing a little far away, Yi Qian hurriedly walked closer and stood as close as possible. She wanted to see how the unconvinced soldiers would challenge Captain Xia. Captain Xia would definitely not refuse. As she stood closer, Xia Jinyuan, who was scanning the field, saw her from the corner of his eyes. He patted the yellow dust off his hands and said with a smile, "Don't worry, we have plenty of time in the future. You should know that besides me, there's also a female instructor. It's not enough to just spar with me. How can I leave her out? Is there anyone who wants to spar with the female instructor? Anyone?" Chapter 48-47. With just one sentence, Xia Jinyuan pushed the atmosphere of the entire field to its peak. When the veterans who were standing upright heard him, they all straightened their necks and roared, "Yes! Yes! Yes!" Good Lord, they didn't even answer in a single voice, but in a row. Their roars were so loud that the veins on their necks popped up. Yi Qian suddenly went from being a bystander to being directly involved. With just one sentence from Xia Jinyuan, he was invited to the field to face hundreds of male soldiers. Xia Jinyuan wiped the sweat off his face and said to the excited and enthusiastic soldiers, "Then you guys can take a break first. I have to go and get the female instructor. Each squad leader will lead the team and take a 10-minute break. Especially those who want to spar with the female instructor, you must take this time to rest. This is my honest advice." The soldiers laughed. They laughed easily and without any pressure. Company Commander Zhu felt embarrassed when he saw this. A bunch of little bastards. Have they never seen a female soldier in their 8 lifetimes? In the 2003 Northwest Army, especially the troops who were located in the depths of the Gobi Desert, the internet, television, and shopping were very far away from the soldiers. The most entertainment they had was various competitions between companies. It was no wonder that the soldiers were so excited. Company Commander Zhu glared at the group of veterans whose eyes lit up when they heard the word female. He yelled at the soldiers in his company, "I've taught a bunch of cowards like you. Where am I supposed to put my face? Behave yourselves. If you scare the female instructor away, all of you will line up to receive your punishment." He wasn't angry. He just had his usual stern face. The soldiers in the company also knew. The deputy company commander joked, "I'm also quite interested. I've never seen a female soldier spar with a male soldier before." Company Commander Zhu glared at his deputy company commander. "Why don't you join in? Do you think it's not lively enough?" I'm not joining in. I'm just supporting you. Political Commissar Tang, Company Commander Zhu has something to discuss with you. The sharp-eyed deputy company commander saw Political Commissar Tang walking over and immediately raised his voice. Even the instructor was not around, so they had to ask Political Commissar Tang to come out. Political Commissar Tang, who was acting as the red face, walked over and looked at Company Commander Zhu's expression. Then, he looked at Deputy Company Commander Zhu, who was trying to hold back his laughter. He didn't even need to ask to know why Company Commander Zhu's face was so dark. Tunnel laughed and said, I think it's pretty good. Let them see the ability of female soldier instructor Yi, so that they won't think that they're number one all day long. When he said this, Political Commissar Tang glanced at Company Commander Zhu from time to time, making the dark-faced Company Commander Zhu's chest hurt. Why are you looking at him? Why are you looking at him? All right, you're the Political Commissar. You're one rank higher than me, so I'm willing to be stared at. Seeing that Company Commander Zhu was not angry, Political Commissar Tang continued to say with a smile, it's time to teach them that there is always someone better than them. Otherwise, they'll be like frogs in a well, looking at the sky. They can only see a small area. Frogs in a well. That includes me, the Frog Zhu. All crows in the world are black, and all political commissars in the army are black. Company Commander Zhu, who was cursing in his heart, lowered his voice and said, Political Commissar, you're too impatient. The female military instructor didn't even say anything, so why should we join in? Don't make it difficult for the female military instructor. If instructor you didn't have some skills, Captain Xia wouldn't do this. He wants to establish instructor Ye's prestige, so of course we have to go with the flow. Establishing her prestige today will be helpful for future progress. Chapter 48:48 Establishing Dominance. The image that Company Commander Zhu added in his mind was not to show his might at all. Instead, it was the male soldiers in their camp picking up the female military instructors and throwing them around like sandbags. How embarrassing would it be for the female instructor? Even so, they shouldn't establish dominance like this. Company Commander Zhu was worried that Yi Qian would be embarrassed in front of the male soldiers. He was anxious. Moreover, they are not the ones to establish dominance. The 20 female soldiers should be here in the afternoon. You should establish dominance in front of them. Political Commissar Tang looked at the female soldier instructor, Ye's tall and straight back. His eyes were full of smiles. Why are you in such a hurry? Did you see? Captain Xia is not in a hurry. Instructor Yi is not in a hurry either. You are worrying too much. Don't panic. Calm down. Take a good look at Instructor Ye's strength. I believe it will be exciting. He paused for a moment and added, it will be even more exciting than Captain Xia, because she is the female instructor. Excited my ass. Let me put it bluntly. If she's going to be beaten up by our soldiers, Old Tang, you'll have to explain to the battalion commander yourself. Also, Old Sun, let Old Liang's deputy company know in advance. If something really happens, it will be too late. There were 3 companies in the barracks. There were 3 company commanders. Company Commander Zhu, Company Commander Sun, and Company Commander Liang. Company Commander Sun went to the base with the battalion commander. Company Commander Liang went to the barracks next door for a few days for an exchange. He would only be back in a week. Now, it was the deputy company commander in charge of the company's affairs. There were about 120 people in a company commander. It was a 3-to-3 system. There were company commanders, deputy company commanders, and company commanders in each company. There were 3 platoons of platoons. There were no deputy platoons. There were 3 platoons in each platoon. There was a squad leader, but there was no deputy squad leader. When the company commander was not around, the deputy company commander was in charge of all the company's affairs. Company Commander Zhu was not like other company commanders. If there was an emergency, he could handle it. But for company affairs like this, he could not overstep his authority. Political Commissar Tang saw that Company Commander Zhu had no confidence in Yi Qian. He was furious. If the soldiers were not around, he would have kicked him. You're looking down on me again. You're looking down on me again. So what I said last night, did you treat it as a fart? Let me tell you, Zhu gone. I'll let you be the first one to spar with Instructor Yi. Political Commissar Tang was so angry that he even used the nickname Company Commander Zhu. Company Commander Zhu, whose face had completely darkened, snorted and replied, "So be it. I'm not afraid." "No, you bastard. I've never been a grandson." "Fine, you said it. I'm going to King tell Instructor Yi to not be merciful to me. Beat me as hard as you can. You're looking down on the students who graduated from the National University of Science and Technology, right? I'll teach you a lesson today." It made Political Commissar Tang, who had always been polite, call him lousy. Vice Company Commander Zhu could only feel helpless. "Company Commander Zhu, you really are a bar. If you don't fight with the Political Commissar and Battalion Commander a few times a day, you won't feel at ease, right?" Company Commander Zhu gone waited for Political Commissar Tang to leave in a huff before he turned his head and said to Vice Company Commander, "Did I piss off the Political Commissar again?" "Yes, you did." Vice Company Commander replied honestly. He was used to it. Company Commander Zhu gone was also angry. He curled his lips and said, "Write a self-reflection with me tonight." Damn it. As a company commander, I write more self-reflection than my soldiers in a year. How embarrassing. It's good that you know, but if you continue to embarrass yourself, then there's nothing to be embarrassed about. Vice Company Commander added in his heart. Chapter 48-49. The Deputy Company added in his mind, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. Everyone in the barracks knows about it. As always, he maintained an honest heart and never hid anything. If there was something to say, say it. Company Commander Zhu glared at him. Can you not say it out loud? Give me some face. Company Commander, even our instructor said that face is not given by others. You have to earn it yourself. If you want face, you have to earn it yourself. The Vice Company Commander heaved a long sigh and expressed his opinion. He also kindly reminded the famous Company Commander Zhu Gonggang, you should be prepared to spar with the female soldiers. If you are careless and lose, don't really lose to the female soldiers. If you really lose, it will probably become a hot topic in the barracks for the next 5 years. It's not just a little loss of face. It's a complete loss of face. I also need to remind you that Political Commissar Tang is right about something. Since Captain Xia is not worried, it means that he has confidence in the female instructor. That's why he dares to challenge the male soldiers on behalf of the female instructor. Company Commander Zhu, who was full of confidence, was continuously attacked by Political Commissar Tang and the Deputy Company Commander. His confidence, which was as solid as a city wall, started to waver. However, the famous Company Commander Gang would never easily lower his head and admit defeat. If it was a fight, then so be it. He had never been afraid. After thinking about it, Company Commander Zhu said, I'll warm up first. If he really lost, he would lose face. He would not fight a battle that he was not confident in. He had to play it safe and seek victory. The Deputy Company Commander watched as his Company Commander Zhu warmed up. He then looked at the other 3 companies. Political Commissar Tang had gathered the deputy companies of the 1st and 2nd companies together and was talking to them about something. On the other side, Xia Jinyuan smiled at Yi Qian and said, no matter how happy you are, it's better to do it yourself. You haven't sparred properly since you started recuperating, right? Now that your chance is here, grab it. He was right. Since she was discharged from the hospital and returned to school to study for her makeup exams, she had not sparred other than going for a morning run with the freshmen. Even her training had been put aside. Yi Qian did not have much an idea at first, but after hearing Xia Jinyuan's words, he really felt the urge to spar. Okay, I'll warm up first and see if I'm not rusty. Fighting was not Yi Qian's strongest suit, but it was not bad either. Back then, when she went to the Snowfield Brigade for training, Xia Jinyuan arranged for her to fight against the Special Forces before she could even put down her luggage. Although she lost in the end, she lost with honor. It had been a long time since she last stood on the wheel. She had also rested for several months, so she had to make some preparations. Therefore, Yi Qian continued, I need to warm up and move around a bit. If I really lose, the military will be very disappointed in me if I fail to establish my authority and become a joke instead. That's why I specially set aside 10 minutes for you to move around and stretch your muscles. I'll help you. Xia Jinyuan volunteered, and Yi Qian did not refuse. Stretching his muscles and bones was easy as well. He arched his left and right legs, pulled his shoulders and back, raised his arms high, and straightened his body. Then he sat down with his legs in the shape of and pressed his body down between his left and right legs. 5 minutes later, all the muscles and bones in his body relaxed, and he entered the zone. He was not in his best condition yet. He needed to be in his best condition to start sparring. The atmosphere would be stirred up, the blood in his body would circulate, the adrenaline would be secreted, and the heart would beat faster. Only then would he be in his best condition. First Company and Second Company's deputy company had already instructed the soldiers in the company that they could go on stage if they wanted, but they could not embarrass the female instructor. Of course, if the female instructor was really strong, then the soldiers would not have to continue to give in just because the instructor was a woman. They would still fight when it was time. Chapter 4850. The deputy company commander instructed the soldiers to speak in unison. We'll decide based on the situation. Xia Jinyuan was different. He directly asked Yi Jian to hit him as hard as she could. She should not show any mercy. She should not even think about holding back. Establishing authority was not a joke. Establishing authority once would put an end to any rumors in the future. What right did a fresh graduate have to take on such a huge responsibility? Was there some kind of under-the-table manipulation? Was there some kind of secret behind this? Could it be that after he joined the army, someone else was the one doing the actual work, and he was the one taking the credit for it? There would definitely be voices of doubt. Then, what he had to do was to put an end to all doubts. Even if there were doubts, they could come to the barracks and ask around. No matter who they looked for, even if it was a soldier from the cookhouse, they had to know that Yi Qian took on such a big responsibility because of his abilities. For Yi Qian's future development, Xia Jinyuan had put in a lot of effort. Of course, Major General Yang had also put in a lot of effort to promote him. Yi Qian had the ability and had been nurturing him since he was 14 years old. Now, the seedling had grown into a tree with deep roots and lush branches. It was time for him to fully display his abilities and serve his country. After Yi Qian finished warming up, Political Commissar Tang walked over and happily told Yi Qian that Company Commander Zhu of 3rd Company would be leading the charge. Don't be fooled by his short stature. He's very agile. He can bend a steel bar the size of a mineral water bottle cap with his bare hands. Company Commander Zhu of 3rd Company? What a strange name. Yi Qian had mistaken the nickname given to Company Commander Zhu by the barracks as his real name. Political Commissar Tang didn't know that Yi Qian had taken it seriously and continued to sell out Company Commander Zhu's weakness. Poor Company Commander Zhu, who was still warming up, had no idea that the Political Commissar had sold him out. When the Deputy Company Commander of 3rd Company saw that Political Commissar Tang was still talking to the female instructor in a low voice and had no intention of stopping, his heart skipped a beat. He quickly walked over to Company Commander Zhu. His intuition told him that Political Commissar Tang was doing something that was disadvantageous to the company commander. At the crucial moment, as the Deputy Company Commander, he had to stand by the company commander's side and not waver. Political Commissar Tang told Yi Qian attentively, "His upper body is very strong, and his body is full of muscles. He is as hard as a rock. Also, he likes to take off his clothes and gesture. Don't be embarrassed when you see him later. Let me tell you another trick. When you take off your clothes, once you sweat, your flesh will become slippery and hard to grab. From time to time, you should find an opportunity to grab a handful of yellow sand and rub it on your palm. It will help you. Don't go easy on him. Didn't he look down on us graduates from the National University of Science and Technology? Heh, I won't hide it from you. When I was assigned here, he dared to throw a tantrum at me when he was still a class monitor. Look, I've been holding back this anger for 14 years. Little Yi, I'm relying on you to help me vent it." The last sentence was, of course, a joke. Although the temperature on a clear day in the highlands was low, the sun was strong enough. Even though it was early in the morning and the sun was shining down on Yi Qian, his forehead started to sweat and his palms were wet. Xia Jinyuan, who was also listening attentively, understood political commissar Tang's intention. He was trying to take care of Yi Qian as much as possible. It sounded like he was telling Yi Qian about Company Commander Zhu's weakness in advance, but in reality, he was letting Yi Qian know about Company Commander Zhu's strength in advance. It was not easy to get promoted in the army. Company Commander Zhu was promoted from an ordinary soldier to a class monitor, and then to a company commander. His personal ability was definitely not ordinary. Political Commissar Tang continued to give instructions until the 10-minute break was over. The hundreds of soldiers in the three companies had all gathered into their respective teams. Xia Jinyuan smiled at Yi Qian and said, "Fight well. Defeat Company Commander Zhu, this tough nut to crack. Become famous after this battle and establish your authority." Chapter 48-51. Xia Jinyuan used a serious and cold expression to tell Yi Qian his attitude towards this matter. Yi Qian nodded solemnly and replied, "I will do my best to defeat Company Commander Zhu." Right now, she really couldn't care less about Company Commander Zhu's reputation. She relaxed and said, "Company Commander Zhu's name is very interesting. Zhu Barbar. Barbar Company Commander." Xia Jinyuan couldn't help but laugh. This is the nickname given to Company Commander Zhu by the regiment. Did you take it seriously? Qing Miao. Oh, Qing Miao. You have to learn to distinguish between the real and the fake. It was Yi Qian's turn to be speechless. She didn't know that political Commissar Tang would mention Company Commander Zhu's nickname in front of her. Didn't you say that nicknames are forbidden? It's not a big deal, and it's not an insult, so it's still okay. At that time, I was even given the nickname Ruo, Shay by the veterans in the unit. Later, I used my fists and IQ to show them who was the real Ruo Shui. Xia Jinyuan looked to the front. Your battle has begun. Go up and introduce yourself. He wasn't worried that Yi Qian would have stage fright, because he knew that his beloved girl was strong when faced with strong opponents. She was brave in challenges and would never back down. Yi Qian walked over to Political Commissar Tang's side and saluted all the soldiers present. "Hello, everyone. I am the instructor of the female squad, Yi Qian. Please give me your guidance." In the blue sky without a single cloud, against the backdrop of the Gobi Desert, the female instructor, Yi Qian, walked over with her sleeves full of spiritual energy. Standing in front of hundreds of male soldiers, she seemed to have been stained by the Gobi Desert for thousands of years. She faced them calmly without the slightest bit of fear. Yi Qian chose to use the same method as Xia Jinyuan to establish his dominance. A total of 5 soldiers, including Company Commander Zhu, took turns to fight. The soldiers who were standing upright were all shocked. Although they didn't show it on their faces, their hearts were in turmoil. She was actually the same as Captain Xia. How could she be the same as Captain Xia? One was a captain from the Special Forces, while the other had just graduated from military academy. Company Commander Zhu clicked his tongue. Wow, he was so brave and courageous. He even dared to imitate Captain Xia, who used to be a Special Forces soldier, and do the wheel stand. He still wanted to persuade her, but Xia Jinyuan said, "Our female instructor has already issued a challenge. Do our male soldiers have the guts to accept it?" Company Commander Zhu widened his eyes. He suddenly felt that Captain Xia, who he liked, was somewhat similar to political Commissar Tang. The male soldiers answered in unison, "Yes, yes, yes." "Okay, I'll accept it then," Xia Jinyuan said loudly. "Company Commander Zhu, it's up to you." Company Commander Zhu led 4 male soldiers into the arena. Before he could say anything, Yi Qian said with a smile, "Company Commander Zhu, let's skip the pleasantries and start the sparring match. What do you think?" Company Commander Zhu, who had deliberately prepared a few words in advance, paused for a moment before nodding. "Deal." How could he not agree? He had to agree. If he didn't, political Commissar Tang, who was waiting to watch a good show, would definitely scold him as a grandson. All the soldiers sat down cross-legged and enthusiastically applauded to show that they couldn't wait to watch the sparring match. Company Commander Zhu did as political Commissar Tang said. He took off his clothes as soon as he entered the arena, but this time he was more reserved. He wore a fitness t-shirt underneath and said, "Call out the numbers." Xia Jinyuan immediately shouted, "1, 2, 3, begin." The match began as soon as he said so. The two people in the arena moved at almost the same speed. They clenched their fists tightly and shouted as they punched each other. Company Commander Zhu held back a little until Yi Qian, who was charging at him from the front, suddenly moved. His hands were so fast that they blurred in front of his eyes. He took a heavy punch to the right side of his waist. Chapter 48-52. The entire training ground was silent for at least 3 seconds. The soldiers expressed their current feelings with dumbfounded expressions on their faces. Political Commissar Tang's eyes were wide open. He was sure he didn't see wrongly. Female instructor Yi first punched Zhu Gangang. So fierce. Company Commander Zhu was even more dumbfounded. She punched him? He was punched. Good. Political Commissar Tang's earth-shattering cheers came from the silent training ground. Thus, the soldiers of the 3 companies also cheered. Company Commander Zhu listened to the cheers with a solemn expression. He felt sullen, and a mouthful of blood was stuck in his throat. The political commissar in their battalion seemed to hate him very much. The more unlucky he was, the happier the political commissar would be. Company Commander Zhu clenched his fists and punched again. Company Commander Zhu stopped looking down on her with one punch. The soldiers cheered with political Commissar Tang. As for him, it hurt. The area where he was punched was quite painful. This punch showed him that the female instructor in front of him wasn't just for show. It also showed him that the female soldier was very strong. Company Commander Zhu attacked again with a fierce gust of wind. The air was so fierce that it seemed to be distorted by his iron fist. Political Commissar Tang said that Company Commander Zhu's iron fists were very strong. Seeing that he used his fists as the vanguard in both attacks, Yi Qian focused on his iron fists and used his lower body to attack. His arms were used for defense, and his legs were used for offense. Company Commander Zhu clenched his fists and the muscles in his arms bulged. Yi Qian focused his attacks on his elbows and shoulders. He quickly retreated to avoid Company Commander Zhu's punches and swings. After dodging several times, Yi Qian kicked at Company Commander Zhu's lower body at lightning speed. He aimed for the base of his thigh. This was also a weak spot. After being kicked, it would often make it impossible for a person to raise their leg for a long time. The moves in the Snowfield Brigade were either killing moves or attacking the weak spots of the human body. They would first hinder the enemy's movement and then find an opportunity to eliminate them in one fell swoop. The person involved, Zhu Yan, was shocked. He realized that the female military instructor that he thought was normal was not normal at all. His moves and routines were the same as Captain Xia's. They were all killer moves and full of murderous intent. He did not seem like a cadet who had just graduated from the military academy. As a soldier who guarded this special area, Company Commander Zhu's hands were stained with blood. Because of this, the more he fought, the more frightened he became, and the more serious his eyes became. Female instructor Yi had definitely killed someone before. He was 100% sure and would not accept any doubts. Company Commander Zhu, whose lower body was being attacked repeatedly, had no choice but to quickly retreat until his knee was hit. A heart-wrenching pain engulfed him, and amidst another round of cheers, Company Commander Zhu retreated a few steps. He had no choice but to stand still and move his left leg that had been hit. Yi Qian retracted her long leg and clenched her hands into fists. She did not give Company Commander Zhu even half a second to rest and adjust. She was so fast that small whirlwinds formed on the ground. The whirlwinds swept up yellow dust, and she attacked directly with great ferocity. The biggest taboo in close combat was to have one's body part grabbed by the opponent and used to inflict heavy damage. When Company Commander Zhu saw this, his first thought was not to attack, but to defend. He used his iron fist to defend. Although Yi Qian was attacking, Company Commander Zhu's iron fists were not easy to deal with. Even if he was defending, she was still under pressure. After a few rounds, her arms were hurting. She could not continue like this. If this went on, she doubted that she would be able to raise her arms tomorrow. She had to knock Company Commander Zhu down as soon as possible. Chapter 48-53. The winner of the sparring match was the one who knocked the opponent to the ground. Company Commander Zhu thought the same way too. He was already scared out of his wits and realized that he had underestimated the female soldier, Instructor Yi, so much so that now he couldn't say anything about it. Xia Jinyuan, who was watching from the side, had a faint smile on his thin lips. He stood by the side like a pine tree under the moonlight. Occasionally, he would see Yi Qian's moves. His eyes would narrow slightly, but no one knew what he was thinking. The instructors of First Company, Second Company, and Third Company had already walked over. They were in charge of the various training for their company commanders. They were all at least 5 years old, and they were strict and didn't like to smile. When new recruits first came in, the instructors were usually the first thing they feared the most. Xia Jinyuan was now the instructor of Third Company, so naturally, he was temporarily the chief instructor of the entire battalion. If they had any questions, they would naturally look for him. Just now, Xia Jinyuan had sparred with the instructors of Third Company, and Yi Qian had learned combat from the Snowfield Brigade. Naturally, their moves were similar. After the instructors in charge of the training noticed something, they all came over to verify their guesses. Faced with the three instructors' guesses, Xia Jinyuan smiled and said, You didn't see wrong. She is indeed a soldier under my tutelage. She can also be considered a special forces soldier. Otherwise, why would I let her spar with the soldiers? If she goes up, the three of you. Xia Jinyuan smiled and glanced at the instructors whose expressions instantly tensed up. The three of you are really no match for her. I can't gain an advantage in front of her either. None of my soldiers have ever gained an advantage in front of her. The three instructors looked at each other when he said this. Why did she become the instructor of the female soldiers? Because of her strength. Xia Jinyuan was quite proud when he said this. The former weak girl had worked hard to become a strong person who could contend with evil, step by step. He had a part to play in this, so how could he not feel proud? The instructor of Third Company glanced at the female instructor who clearly had the upper hand. His Adam's apple moved slightly, and he whispered, Then won't Company Commander Zhu lose for sure? From the looks of it, there's an 80% to 90% chance of losing, Xia Jinyuan answered honestly, at least saving Company Commander Zhu some face. It wasn't an 80% to 90% chance of losing, it was a definite loss. The three drill masters held their breaths. Company Commander Zhu had defeated the entire regiment with his iron fists. The three of them could not gain much of an advantage against Company Commander Zhu. They did not expect that they would lose to a female military instructor. Before the female military instructor went on stage, the vice company commander had specially instructed them to act according to the situation. It was obvious that he had doubts about the ability of the female military instructor. All of a sudden, the three instructors felt their faces burning. The close combat had reached its climax. Both of them used their legs and used so much force that their bodies collided with each other. Company Commander Zhu took a few steps back like a drunkard. Meanwhile, the reaction of the female military instructor made all the surrounding soldiers cheer and almost rush out of the sky. She didn't retreat. Instead, she did a nimble somersault. Then, like a fierce tiger, she knelt on one knee with one hand on her bent knee and the other hand on ground. During the fight, Yi Qian's training cap fell to the side. Her short hair was neatly trimmed, and her face was covered in sweat. Her delicate eyebrows emitted a sword-like aura. She was beautiful, but her beauty was completely ignored. It was suppressed by the hostility in her black eyes. Seeing Yi Qian, everyone, including political Commissar Tang, shifted their gazes from Yi Qian to Company Commander Zhu, who was panting heavily. Company Commander Zhu was going to lose. Chapter 4854. They didn't communicate, but the same thought flashed through their minds. Xiao Jinyuan spat out 2 words coldly, countdown. He meant that they were counting down to the end. The 3 company instructors clenched their fists and broke out in a cold sweat for Company Commander Zhu. They could tell that Instructor Yi was very strong. They believed that Company Commander Zhu, who was sparring, could tell as well. If he really lost to Instructor Yi, it would be a little embarrassing. However, Instructor Yi was very strong, so there was nothing to be embarrassed about. The fight ended very quickly. Company Commander Zhu's iron fist couldn't do anything to Yi Qian, who was trained in the Special Forces. His wrist was tightly clamped by her, and her fist hit Company Commander Zhu's armpit hard. With a ferocious roar, Yi Qian fiercely twisted her iron fist around Company Commander Zhu's back. She twisted his arm backwards, and the intense pain made Company Commander Zhu's expression change. Large drops of sweat also followed. He didn't give up resisting. He used his other movable hand to hit Yi Qian and hooked his leg tightly around Yi Qian's left calf. Good, good. Instructor Yi, you can do it. Company Commander, you can do it. The back and forth was really exciting. The soldiers watching couldn't help but clap and cheer again. Company Commander Zhu also repeatedly cheered for Yi Qian's fierceness. Neither of them tripped the other immediately. Even though Yi Qian's left calf was hooked by Company Commander Zhu's back, her slender legs seemed to be rooted to the ground. No matter how tightly Company Commander Zhu hooked her, the crutch didn't budge. After blocking Company Commander Zhu's iron fist, Yi Qian used her elbow to strike Company Commander Zhu's neck. If this was a real battle, Yi Qian would use her elbow to strike the enemy's head. After all, sparring was just sparring. One could win, but one could not be injured. Therefore, every time Yi Qian attacked, he would always avoid the fatal points. Every time he attacked, he would always attack the weak points that would impede the opponent's mobility and cause them to feel pain and focus their attention. Company Commander Zhu only had time to yell in his mind. His vision turned black from the blow to his neck, and he lost the strength in his arms. Yi Qian seized the opportunity to press down on Company Commander Zhu's raised leg with one leg and hit his knee hard. When the instructors of the 3 companies heard Captain Xiao laugh and say, "It's over," Company Commander Zhu, who was short and muscular, was knocked down by the female soldiers. The impact of the fall was very strong. Company Commander Zhu, who had fallen to the ground, was thrown into the air. Yellow dust flew around him like a mountain that had collapsed. Even his fall was majestic. The main reason was that Yi Qian's momentum when he knocked down Company Commander Zhu was so majestic that the soldiers watching the battle couldn't help but shudder. The female soldier's instructor was amazing. She looked thin and weak. Her arms and neck were so thin that they could grab her with one hand. They didn't expect her body to contain so much strength. Before the battle, they were all skeptical of the female instructor's ability. But after the battle, they cheered for Instructor Yi the entire time. She let them know that female soldiers could be so powerful. Company Commander, Company Commander, Instructor Yi, Instructor Yi. The cheers were louder and fiercer than before. The applause came wave after wave. Most of them were cheering for Instructor Yi's vigor. The military was a place where the strong were respected. Strength would quickly gain the recognition of the soldiers. Company Commander Zhu, who was covered in yellow dust, choked on some yellow dust. He coughed as he got up. He patted the dust off his hands. He didn't feel embarrassed about losing. Instead, he laughed loudly. "Instructor Yi, I need to apologize to you. I used to think that you were just SOSO. I was blind. I sincerely apologize to you. Please forgive me." Chapter 4855. He was magnanimous and even took the initiative to apologize for his previous contempt. What a great husband! Yi Jin lifted his arms that were aching from his bones. He smiled and said, "Sergeant Zhu, your iron fists are amazing. Thank goodness for political Commissar Tang's reminder. or else I would have suffered greatly under your iron fists." It seemed like an ordinary sentence, but it actually saved Company Commander Zhu's face. As a company commander, he had more than 100 soldiers under him, so he had to save some face. Company Commander Zhu was a straightforward person. A loss was a loss, and there was no excuse for it. No matter how strong my iron fists are, they can't beat your punches and kicks. Impressive, truly impressive. Our political commissar Tang also reminded me that since you were sent to be the female soldier's instructor, you must have some outstanding qualities. He told me not to judge you based on your appearance. As for me, I said that I didn't have any objections, but I did. I was just afraid that you were a delicate military school student who couldn't handle hardships and couldn't accomplish great things. Political Commissar Tang was so angry that he glared at me. He pointed at my nose and scolded me, saying that I would definitely suffer at your hands. If he was right, then I would be asking for trouble. Company Commander Zhu picked up his training uniform jacket and admitted his loss. He also won applause from the soldiers. After putting on his uniform, Company Commander Zhu smiled at the other 4 male soldiers and said, "Come, let's line up and get beaten up. I'll take the risk first, and then I'll retreat. As for the 4 of you, do as you see fit." Do as you see fit. It's fine. The 4 male soldiers refused in their hearts, but they were men and couldn't go back on their word. How could they admit defeat just because Instructor Yi was stronger? Even if they were beaten black and blue, they had to do it. Then let's do it. The male soldiers were prepared to be beaten up, so they bravely walked up the stage with expressions that said they would never return. Company Commander Zhu wiped the sweat off his forehead and walked to Xia Jinyuan's side. He sighed and said, "Captain Xia, are you hiding something? Since I got beaten up, can you be honest with me?" The end of the confession was, Company Commander Zhu felt even more ashamed of himself. It was only natural for him to lose, so there was nothing to be ashamed of. She's a female soldier from the Special Forces, and she's even your soldier. Even you, the captain, have suffered a loss. Captain Xia. Oh, Captain Xia. If you had told me earlier, I wouldn't have asked for trouble. Captain Xia smiled at Company Commander Zhu, whose face was covered in dust and sweat. He didn't say anything. Everything was in his smile. Company Commander Zhu narrowed his eyes and let out a long "oh" to indicate that he understood. Company Commander Zhu, who understood what was going on, said bitterly, Captain Xia, to think that I thought you were a kind person. I didn't expect that he would dig a deep pit for me and wait for me to jump in. Company Commander Zhu, I didn't expect you to personally participate. I didn't expect Instructor Yi to be on the same side as you. Otherwise, why would the military send her here? The training of female soldiers is sometimes more tiring than that of male soldiers. As Xia Jinyuan spoke, he smiled and looked at the figure in the field who was sparring with the male soldiers again. His eyes were focused, and he didn't spare a glance at anyone else. Company Commander Zhu, who had bumped into a wall, finally realized the truth. Political Commissar Tang wasn't on the field. He didn't even see the exciting scene of Yi Qian knocking down Company Commander Zhu. The secretary came to tell him that the officer in charge of bringing the female soldiers into the barracks had called, so Political Commissar Tang went back to his office to answer the call. By the time he finished the call, Yi Qian had already fought 3 people in a row. When he learned that Company Commander Zhu had been knocked down by Yi Qian, Political Commissar Tang gloated and felt that it was a pity that he didn't get to see Company Commander Zhu make a fool of himself. Chapter 4856. Political Commissar Tang purposely walked up to Company Commander Zhu and said a few sarcastic words. However, Company Commander Zhu was so angry that he couldn't catch his breath. How could a political commissar be so petty? The petty political commissar Tang laughed and said, 14 years of humiliation can be washed away in one day. How delightful! Facing the political commissar who would make fun of him from time to time, Company Commander Zhu, as a captain, could only pinch his nose and accept it. His military rank was low and his position was low. He had to accept it even if he didn't want to. Political Commissar Tang felt that after this lesson, Company Commander Zhu would not dare to look down on the female soldiers easily in the future. Even if there were 20 female soldiers arriving later, Company Commander Zhu would not dare to look down on them. As for the company commanders of 1st Company and 2nd Company who had not returned, they would not make the same mistake as Zhu Gongong. At this time, the female soldiers had already set off for more than 2 hours. If everything went well, they would arrive before 2 p.m. Yi Qian was having a good time with the male soldiers. The female soldiers who came to the barracks were also having a good time chatting in the car. It was the first time for the female soldiers from all over the country to come to the Northwest. They were attracted by the spectacular scenery along the way and exclaimed from time to time. After sitting for more than 2 hours, the scenery was still the same. They started to feel bored. After a round of self-introductions, they started to have some topics to talk about. They talked about their former units and why they came to the Northwest for no reason. After chatting, they found out that everyone was supposed to go to the Nongguang military district. They did not know why they all came to the Northwest. It's impossible to transfer. In the future, we will be the Northwest female soldiers. It will be harder to go home than before. Yes, I don't even dare to tell my family. I'm afraid they will be worried. I'm from Nongguang. I'm getting farther and farther away from Nongguang. I'm from Yin Province. I'm farther away than you. I'm from a northerners by the Mo River. Who's farther away than me? There's one. I'm also from the northerners. I can see North Korea from the mountains. This girl was the closest to them. She came from the northernmost part of the country and then came to the Northwest. 6 to 7 hours of travel was enough for the female soldiers to get to know each other. Because they were all from different units and had been notified to come to the Northwest at the last minute. Plus, they were all female soldiers who had passed the selection. They had a lot of common topics to talk about. Some felt like old friends at first sight, while others only had a few words of courtesy. At around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the sun shone on the yellow sand, creating a thin layer of white light. The 20 female soldiers finally arrived at the camp after a bumpy journey that made their butts hurt. The sentry checked the documents of the soldiers and officers in the vehicles, pulled open the barbed fence, and let them pass. At 2:15, the female soldiers got off the bus and regrouped. Then, they were led into the barracks by the soldiers. The one who received the female soldiers was a squad leader of the male soldiers. Facing the 20 female soldiers, the squad leader maintained a serious face and led the female soldiers to a 3-story dormitory building. He first arranged the rooms for the 20 female soldiers. Due to the limited conditions, the female soldiers shared a dormitory for 5 people. There were a total of 4 rooms. He also told the female soldiers that their instructor had been waiting for a long time and that they should return to the dormitory to rest first. The instructor might come directly to the dormitory to look for them, or he might show up immediately. After that, the male squad leader looked at the 20 female soldiers meaningfully. It was now 2:20. There were still 10 minutes before the afternoon exercise. It depended on whether they wanted to gather or not. So far, the 20 female soldiers still didn't know whether their instructor was a man or a woman. They didn't ask either. Subconsciously, they thought it was a male instructor. At 2:30, the camp bugle call sounded. The 20 female soldiers all reacted very quickly. They didn't need to be reminded. They packed up and ran out as fast as they could. They were all female soldiers. When they heard the bugle call, it was a conditioned reflex for them to gather. They didn't turn a deaf ear to the change in environment. Chapter 48:57. The selected female soldiers weren't just for show. In the previous army, they could compete with the male soldiers. Their skills, speed, and reflexes were all quite good. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been selected. Their military qualities were good. Even if the officer told them that they could rest in the barracks and wait for the instructor to show up, they wouldn't turn a deaf ear when the whistle was blown. The female soldiers in the 5 dormitories rushed out of their dormitories as soon as the whistle was blown. They were fully equipped and ready to go. They were all qualified from head to toe. Even Gao Xiao and Qiu Tong, who didn't like each other, didn't make things difficult for each other when they heard the whistle. They rushed out of their dormitories at the same time. No one asked where they were going to gather. nor did they ask if anyone would show up later. The 20 female soldiers, who were used to obeying orders, were all agile and ran after the male soldiers. The male soldiers in the barracks didn't notice the female soldiers at first, who would observe the figures running around them while running. No one paid attention, so naturally no one noticed them. However, Yi Qian noticed them. She came out of Political Commissar Tang's office and returned to the dormitory building. She saw several female soldiers with slender bodies who were obviously different from the male soldiers. They were running with the male soldiers. From the time the whistle was blown to when she saw the figures of the female soldiers, only a few seconds had passed. Captain Xia, I have more confidence in them than before. Seeing several slender figures running out, Yi Qian smiled and said to the man beside him, "Half a year. Although time is a bit tight, I think it's still possible to bring them in." She couldn't stay in the Northwest for a long time, and she couldn't lead the female soldiers all the time. Therefore, she could only bring the female soldiers in half a year and embark on the road to becoming a female Special Forces soldier. Xia Jinyuan didn't notice the female soldiers immediately. He only noticed them when Yi Qian raised his hand and pointed at them. He glanced at them and calmly looked away. You'll have an easier time if they're more sensible. At present, their military qualities are not bad, but you can't say for sure immediately. Distance tests a horse's strength, and time reveals a person's heart. Whether they're good or bad, it still needs to be verified. In his eyes, no matter how powerful a female soldier was, it was impossible for her to be as powerful as this female soldier, even though he could count the number of female soldiers he had seen with his fingers. When Yi Qian heard this, he cast a sidelong glance at him and said with a half-smile, "Captain Xia, do you have no confidence in me? There seems to be a misunderstanding." The desire to live made Lieutenant Colonel Xia immediately explain with a straight face, "That's not it. I've always looked at things that I'm not responsible for from the sidelines. Whether it's good or bad, you'll only know after you practice. I have absolute confidence in you, but I don't know much about them, so naturally, I don't have much confidence in them. However, I believe that under your training, they will definitely improve." Yi Qian nodded in satisfaction. That's more like it. When he saw the female soldiers running out and following the male soldiers, Yi Qian said, "I originally wanted to go to each dormitory to familiarize myself with them, but that won't do now. Since they've all gone, as their instructor, I have to go too." Xia Jinyuan agreed, but asked with a smile, "Do you know where they will gather? How could I not know if I ran with them?" Yi Qian glanced at his family members who still wanted to laugh at him and pointed at his own head. "Captain Xia, I bring my brain with me every day." Chapter 48-58. Speaking of which, Xia Jinyuan couldn't help but laugh. He had an extremely handsome face, and his bright smile was like the faint rays of the sun on the horizon. He had a charm that made people unable to stop looking at him. Yi Qian quickly looked away. "You can also cross the field now. I'll go first." Lieutenant Colonel Xia, who still didn't know that he had inadvertently blinded his girlfriend with his looks, reminded him again, "Remember everything I said before. Since there are a few troublesome people in the class with military ranks, you can't look down on them just because they're inexperienced. You must establish your authority. You must establish your authority as soon as possible." Until today, Xia Jinyuan was still worried that Yi Qian wouldn't be able to establish his authority as soon as possible. It wasn't that Xia Jinyuan was overthinking things, and it wasn't that he didn't have confidence in Yi Qian. Everything stemmed from the fact that he had suffered losses before. When he first entered the Snowfield Brigade, he left his current comrades with the impression that he was a pretty boy. Although he managed to subdue them within a week, he still couldn't let it go. He didn't want Yi Qian, who had been working so hard and stepping on thorns, to encounter such a situation. That was why he reminded him again and again. Among the 20 female soldiers, there were not only first-class soldiers and non-commissioned officers who had served for more than 3 years, but there were also female soldiers with the ranks of first lieutenant and second lieutenant. Gao Xiao and Qiu Tong were both first lieutenants. The two of them originally belonged to the same unit, and their personal grudges also originated from the same unit. Remembering Xia Jinyuan's reminder, Yi Qian took a shortcut and ran to the field as fast as he could. The northwest was vast and sparsely populated, so the barracks were naturally large. The assembly point for the 3 companies of male soldiers was also not bad. The assembly point for each platoon was also not bad. It all depended on where the female soldiers would choose to assemble. Knowing that they didn't know the assembly point, the 20 female soldiers had a tacit understanding and didn't run too far apart so that they wouldn't be able to find a main unit. 3 minutes was enough for them to quickly discuss. In the end, they reached a consensus that they would run to whichever training ground was the largest and whichever was the emptiest. As for whether or not the instructor would find them, it wasn't within their consideration. It was a dereliction of duty as an instructor to not show up immediately and tell them where to gather. The female soldiers' minds had always been more flexible than the male soldiers. They had more ideas, so naturally they were more calculative. Moreover, they had come to the northwest with some resentment, more or less with some personal feelings. However, they were also a group of qualified soldiers with good military qualities who absolutely obeyed orders. Even if there were a few emotions, they would not cause trouble. Yi Qian, who had taken a shortcut, did not think too much about it. Instead, he was very satisfied with the female soldiers' reactions. Looking at the direction the female soldiers were running in, Yi Qian knew they were going to the sports field. In the afternoon, the sports field was Team Xia's home ground. His side had selected a group of elites. There weren't many of them, only 20 male soldiers. In the words of Company Commander Zhu, he didn't want too much, just enough for the female soldiers to practice. It was also impossible for Xia Jinyuan to train with all 500 soldiers in the barracks every day. Selecting 20 elites was exactly what he wanted. However, Company Commander Zhu couldn't make this decision. Although Political Commissar Tang also agreed, he couldn't make the final decision. The battalion commander had to come back first. Political Commissar Tang said it wasn't a big problem. They would select first and wait for the battalion commander to come back before making the final decision. Therefore, the 500 soldiers all gathered at the sports field this afternoon, and 20 elites were selected in one day. The deputy companies of the 3 companies had already recommended candidates, and the number of people was far more than 20 elites. For the sake of fairness, the soldiers had to compete among themselves, and the winner would be selected. Chapter 48:59. 3 minutes later, except for the sentries and patrolling soldiers, all the cookhouse soldiers were standing in line. When the 20 female soldiers saw this, they immediately went to the leftmost position and lined up with the male soldiers. When the male soldiers on the leftmost line saw this, they couldn't help but tense up. They straightened their backs and looked more serious. They stared straight ahead and didn't dare to look to their sides. Why are they standing next to him? Why are they standing so close to him? Why aren't they resting? Why are they doing exercises together? Instructor Yi, why aren't you taking your soldiers? The male soldiers were quite nervous. If Company Commander Zhu knew about this, he would definitely kick them again and call them cowards. The leftmost line was the soldiers of 2nd Company. When the deputy company commander of 2nd Company saw that there was an extra line next to his soldiers, he almost cursed out loud. He even thought that his soldiers were stupid. His heart skipped a few beats. The deputy company commander glared and quickly ran to Company Commander Zhu to report this. When Company Commander Zhu heard this, he waved his hand and said disapprovingly, "Then let them watch. With Instructor Yi watching, they won't do anything." Company Commander Zhu respected Instructor Yi, who took down 5 male soldiers in a row, as a man. That's right, Yi Qian's glorious image in Company Commander Zhu's heart was that of a man. The deputy company commander of 2nd Company panicked. "But they can't stand next to our company. Let's go somewhere else. Let's go somewhere else." Why should we go somewhere else? It's either the left or the right. They've already chosen the left. What's the point of going somewhere else? Company Commander Zhu's dark face fell. Why should we go somewhere else? The deputy company commander didn't know why, but he just didn't feel good about it. It was definitely impossible to go somewhere else, especially when Company Commander Zhu saw the manly Instructor Yi. It was even more impossible for him to agree to the deputy company commander's unreasonable request. What else could the deputy company commander do? He had no choice. Then he went to his own company and walked past the soldiers who were standing as straight as a white birch tree. Today we are selecting people. When the soldiers of our company go on stage, raise your voice. Don't embarrass me. Do you see the female soldiers at the side? They're not simple. They're all selected soldiers from the original army. Don't let the female soldiers look down on you. My skin is all tensed up. Who's going to embarrass me? You better be mentally prepared. It was the first time a group of female soldiers had come to the barracks. Not to mention the company commanders. Even the male soldiers felt the same. The female soldiers were calmer than the male soldiers. They were used to being stared at in their original unit. Here, it was just a change of location to be stared at. There was nothing to be afraid of. It was just that the sun was unusually strong, and it was so hot that it hurt. Although the temperature in the northwest in September was low in the mornings, due to the high altitude, the sun shone brightly. Although the temperature was low, the threat of the sun was great. Once they were in a shady place, it would be cool and comfortable. The female soldier who stood facing the sun brought out the valiant and heroic bearing of a female soldier. She was like a green scenery in the desert, refreshing the mind. Political Commissar Tang smiled and said to Xia Jinyuan, "It seems that we have to consider recruiting more female soldiers in the future. Female soldiers are not inferior to male soldiers. Instructor Yi is the best example. Who said that women were inferior to men? When women were powerful, they were definitely fighter jets." Xia Jinyuan smiled and said, "In the future, when the policy is relaxed, there will definitely be more and more female soldiers. The threshold for female soldiers is high now. The situation is a problem. We can only slowly develop in the future. When more positions need female soldiers in the army, there will be more and more female soldiers." There were very few female soldier quotas in various places. Sometimes a city or a county only had a few female soldier quotas. Sometimes these quotas might not fall into the hands of the civilians fairly. The local armed forces would directly distribute the quotas. Chapter 4860. Political Commissar Tang seemed to have thought of something as the smile on his face faded a little. Then he sighed softly. The situation and policy issues are more important, but local issues also exist. This is also the reason why Company Commander Zhu did not have high hopes for female soldiers. There are some issues that Political Commissar Tang could not say directly, so he could only vaguely mention them. Xia Jinyuan understood why Political Commissar Tang sighed. At that time, I also strongly oppose Yi Qian accepting a female soldier class. His faint sentence let Political Commissar Tang know that he understood his sigh. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. They had a tacit understanding and did not continue to talk. These days, female soldiers had a certain amount of family connections. It was fine as long as everyone understood it in their hearts, so there was no need to say it out loud. Sometimes, they really had to pretend not to know. The topic changed to the selection of 20 elite male soldiers. As they chatted, the battalion commander who went to the base was about to return. Father Fu, who left the barracks in the morning to return to the base, was chatting with the battalion commander who was about to return to the barracks. He mentioned his daughter, Yi Qian. The battalion commander's surname was Tian. He had known Father Fu for 10 years. Although one was a lieutenant colonel and the other was a major general, the two of them had been good friends for many years. Naturally, he knew his friend's personal situation. Until he got into the car, Battalion Commander Tian still had not digested the fact that his good friend had a biological daughter. His biological daughter was the instructor of the female soldier class transferred to his barracks. His mother's father. Such a big news almost choked him to death. In order to see Yi Qian sooner, his niece, Battalion Commander Tian, jumped into the car and urged the motorist to drive faster. Company Commander's son, who came along with him, was shocked. He thought that something big had happened in the barracks and quickly asked what was going on. Due to various reasons, I haven't made it public yet. Old Tian, I'm telling you today, It's because my daughter is in your barracks and you're a fierce person. I'm worried that my daughter will be scolded by you, so I can only tell you in advance. I didn't take the initiative to mention the others. The only people in the base who know are the orderlies who followed me. Therefore, Battalion Commander Tion did not tell Company Commander's son that he had rushed back to see his niece, who had appeared out of nowhere and almost shocked him to death. He only told him that the female soldiers had arrived and that he should return to the army as soon as possible. Not many people in the camp were optimistic about the arrival of the female soldiers. Company Commander's son, who was born and raised in the Northwest, said in a low voice, "After we go back early, I still have to control the male soldiers in the company." He wouldn't make any mistakes. At most, he would sneak a few glances at the female soldiers. Yi Qian, the niece of Battalion Commander Tion, was currently standing at the very back of the female soldiers. Every time she walked past a female soldier, she would size them up and memorize their names. She had looked at the roster and the personal information of the 20 female soldiers. She had already memorized their names and photos. She came back this time just to recognize their faces and nothing else. When he walked past Gao Xiao and Xiu Tong, Yi Qian did not walk right past them. Instead, he paused for a few seconds before walking away. The female soldiers were already muttering in their hearts. Why was there a captain walking past them in the middle of their formation? They couldn't see her badge out of the corner of their eyes, only her armband and epaulets. They didn't know if she was a civilian or not. None of the female soldiers thought that the captain walking past them was their instructor. A female soldier who looked slender and delicate, but who knew how many times more ruthless than the male soldiers. She was also the instructor who was still fresh in their memories throughout their entire military career, even long after they had retired. Chapter 4861. Although the female soldiers didn't know the identity and position of the captain who walked past them, they were all smart people. Since he was able to walk freely in their formation, he must be someone of a certain status. Even if they had doubts in their hearts, they didn't directly size him up and allowed him to walk past them. They looked straight ahead and stood tall and straight, not losing out to the male soldiers at all. The scenery in the Gobi Desert was very simple. Everything was yellow as far as the eye could see. Even the ground under their feet was yellow. A group of beautiful and youthful female soldiers standing in the training ground became the most beautiful scenery in the entire camp. Company Commander Zhu glanced at them a few times and whispered to Xia Jinyuan, "Do you think they can all persevere? Does Instructor Yi have any experience leading a team? I see that all of them are very energetic and none of them are to be trifled with. I'm afraid that Instructor Yi will suffer some losses in their hands. You have to keep a close eye on them when the time comes. Find out which one of them is dishonest. Give them a direct warning and remind them that they must be disciplined." Company Commander Zhu didn't take the loss to heart. Instead, he thought of taking care of Yi Qian. Xia Jinyuan looked in the direction of the female soldiers and found Yi Qian at first glance. He could feel her calmness even from a distance. It was obvious that she wasn't flustered because it was her first time leading a team. Instructor Yi's ability is enough to handle it. If you can't even control the soldiers, then it's better to give up your position early. Don't delay the progress of the female soldiers' training. Hurry up and report to the military headquarters for a replacement. Xia Jinyuan wasn't joking when he said this. If he found out that Yi Qian really couldn't make the female soldiers obey her orders and disobeyed her orders, he wouldn't immediately hold the female soldiers responsible. Instead, he would hold the instructor responsible. She couldn't even lead the soldiers well. Useless. Why should he keep an incompetent person? No matter how much Xia Jinyuan loved Yi Qian, was loyal to the country, and had heavy responsibilities on his shoulders, he wouldn't tolerate her. Company Commander Zhu was frightened by the coldness in Xia Jinyuan's tone. His eyelids twitched a few times. "You're really not biased. You can even do such a thing." Of course, personal relationships are personal relationships. I can't turn a blind eye because of personal relationships. Discipline isn't just for the soldiers. We also need to be disciplined. And I'm sure that Instructor Yi doesn't need too much help. The The female soldiers will obey her orders. Even if you need my help, it should only be a matter of increasing the difficulty of the training. Xia Jinyuan had confidence in Yi Qian. Seeing how certain he was, Commander Zhu's eyes flashed, and he asked casually, "Have you and Instructor Yi known each other for a long time?" "Yes, the elders know each other." Hearing this, Company Commander Zhu was enlightened. That almost led him astray. Xia Jinyuan didn't want to talk about his private relationship with Yi Qian. He also knew that Company Commander Zhu wasn't as straightforward and reckless as he appeared to be. So he changed the topic to the camp and asked when the battalion commander would return. Company Commander Zhu replied, "Around 4 or 5 in the afternoon. He'll definitely talk to you when he returns. Don't worry. He looks like Mr. Bao. He's a good person." They stopped paying attention to Yi Qian and naturally talked about Battalion Commander Tian. Jane, who had walked from the last female soldier to the front of the line, turned around and looked coldly at the female soldiers who were as tall and straight as the male soldiers. His line of sight swept across the female soldiers' solemn faces. Their beautiful faces, which would always amaze people, had a very faint smile on them. It was like a colorful flower wrapped in a sparkling and translucent ice crystal in a vast expanse of snow, instantly attracting people's attention. Chapter 4862. The few female soldiers standing at the front could clearly see Yi Qian's face and couldn't help but gasp. This captain's face was too beautiful. Her eyebrows were like a painting. No, even a painting couldn't draw out such beautiful colors. Didn't they say that the sun in the northwest was high and the ultraviolet rays were so strong that their skin color was dark? Why was this captain, who was so beautiful that even the women were stunned, fair and tender? Under the sunlight, they felt as if there was a layer of translucent white porcelain on her skin. This was too illogical. Could it be that she had just arrived like them? That couldn't be right. Looking at her behavior, it didn't seem like she had just arrived. Yi Qian, who was standing at the front, hadn't opened her mouth yet, but the female soldiers below kept making guesses. She didn't introduce herself either. Next was Xia Jinyuan's selection, so she couldn't steal the limelight. The female soldiers faintly looked at her. Yi Jianjin looked back at them directly. Her eyes were sharp and cold, with a hint of warning. It wasn't a warning because she was looking at her, but because Political Commissar Tang was talking and the female soldiers in line were distracted. Gao Xiao, who was caught red-handed by her, was caught off guard. Her heart trembled violently when her gaze swept over. She instantly became obedient and didn't dare to be distracted again. When she became obedient, she muttered in her heart even more uncomfortably. She wanted to know who the captain with the scary gaze was. Among the female soldiers, there were 2 second lieutenants and 1 first lieutenant. The first lieutenant held the position of deputy platoon leader in the original army. The 2 second lieutenants were outstanding soldiers who had been promoted and graduated this year. The 3 of them had more seniority, so they were the 3 most afraid of Yi Qian's identity among the 20 female soldiers. They were female soldiers, and the captain standing in front of them was also a female soldier. It was very likely that she was the instructor in charge of training. As this thought flashed through their minds, the 3 of them looked forward and didn't dare to look at Yi Qian. After Yi Qian caught 3 female soldiers in a row, she calmly retracted her gaze. The 3 female soldiers who were caught by her still had a lingering fear in their hearts. They did not expect that they would be caught by the captain just by sneaking a few glances. It was so fast that they did not even have time to withdraw their gazes. As a result, no one dared to use the rest of their lives to size up Yi Qian. In addition, Yi Qian had been standing in front of the formation all this time. The female soldiers could vaguely guess what was going on, so they did not dare to act rashly. Yi Qian, who had his back facing them, could naturally feel that no one was looking at her. His clear black eyes calmly stared at Political Commissar Tang, who was speaking in front of him. Even if Xia Jinyuan was also standing in front of him, Yi Qian did not spare any of his attention. The selection of the 20 male soldiers began very quickly. After political commissar Tang finished speaking, Xia Jinyuan, who was the instructor, stood at the front. His appearance was like a white pearl emerging from a group of black pearls. Once again, the female soldiers were amazed. This lieutenant colonel also had fair and elegant skin. It was impossible to tell that he was a soldier from the Northwest. When he wore a military uniform, he exuded military might. When he took off the military uniform, he exuded an air of nobility. He was so handsome that his facial features were flawless. Seeing this, Gao Xiao sneered and glanced at Qiu Tong, who was standing on her left. She did not know if this lieutenant colonel had a girlfriend. It did not matter if he had a girlfriend or not. If he was targeted by a woman like Qiu Tong, even if he had a girlfriend, she would pester him until he broke up with her. She was a living example of that. Glancing at Qiu Tong from the corner of her eyes, Gao Xiao almost sneered when she saw that Qiu Tong's expression was serious. Pretend. Let's see how long she can pretend. Qiu Tong knew that Gao Xiao was coldly staring at her from her right. She frowned and moved her lips. Do you want to die? Chapter 48-63. F***CK off. Gao Xiao replied. She didn't dare to be distracted. The rest of the female soldiers remained motionless as they stared at the instructor in front of them. Only the 8 female soldiers in front of them could clearly see what the instructor looked like. The rest of the female soldiers could only hear his voice but not see him. The capable male soldiers in the 3 companies who were interested in competing for the 20 spots had already walked to the front of the line. There were a total of 46 of them, and they were all the most capable male soldiers in the company. 9 of them were the male soldiers who challenged Xia Jinyuan and Yi Qian in the morning and lost in the end. If nothing unexpected happened, the 9 of them would definitely be selected. Xia Jinyuan had sparred with 5 of them and was quite satisfied with their physical fitness. Yi Qian was also quite satisfied with the physical fitness of the other 4 male soldiers and believed that they had a high chance of becoming one of the 20 elite soldiers. However, Xia Jinyuan's selection had strict requirements. He didn't just want to be good at combat, he also wanted to pass the overall physical fitness test. Therefore, his selection was equivalent to a martial arts competition. Other than the obstacle course, there were also other competitions. Company Commander Zhu said to Political Commissar Tang in private, "The people from Special Forces are indeed different. If he stays for a few more years, the overall standard of our battalion will definitely be raised by a few levels." Political Commissar Tang laughed at Company Commander Zhu's greed. Captain Xiao's arrival was very sudden. The regiment didn't even receive any news. By the time they found out, she had already confirmed that she would be joining the Pioneer Battalion. This was even more sudden than the establishment of a female combat team in the Northwest. The establishment of a female combat team was necessary and also a trend. Captain Xiao's arrival was said to be a training ground for the Pioneer Battalion, but it felt like there was something else behind it. As for the hidden reason, they had guessed and pondered over it, but they couldn't figure it out. The 46 male soldiers walked out of the line. Suddenly, Company Commander Zhu opened his mouth and said, "Instructor Yi, do you want to compete with your female squad?" His question was very sudden, and Political Commissar Tang was stunned for a moment. Political Commissar Tang reacted quickly and said, "Company Commander Zhu was defeated this morning." "Why? Are you looking for trouble now?" Yi Qian didn't answer immediately. He turned to face the female soldiers and glanced at them with a smile. "Let me introduce myself. I'm your instructor, Yi Qian. It's a pleasure to meet all of you." When her identity was revealed, the female soldiers were more or less surprised. It really was their instructor. She was young and beautiful and looked average. It's your first day in the camp, and you haven't even familiarized yourself with the environment. Do you have the confidence to compete with the male soldiers? If there is, I will accept the challenge immediately. One person cannot represent the entire female troop. I will only accept the challenge if everyone agrees. Do you agree? Influenced by Xia Jinyuan, Yi Qian's aura didn't diminish even when he smiled. She left the question of whether to accept or not to accept the challenge to the female soldiers themselves. The female soldiers looked at the male soldiers who stood out in front of them and wanted to open their mouths to accept the challenge. However, the main point was their instructor required everyone to accept the challenge before she would accept it. I'll count to 1, 2, 3. Answer me on the count of 3. Yi Qian glanced at the female soldiers one by one. As soon as she said 3, 21 voices rang out in unison. Yes, although their voices weren't as loud as the male soldiers, they were equally sonorous and full of fighting spirit. Yi Qian smiled at Company Commander Zhu and said, "Company Commander Zhu, we have accepted the challenge." Company Commander Zhu laughed and said, "Women are not inferior to men. Instructor Yi, your soldiers are very confident." He waved his hand and asked the male soldiers in a deep voice, "What about you? Are you confident?" Chapter 48-64. Yes, yes, yes. His voice was as loud as the morning bell and resounded throughout the training ground. Good. Company Commander Zhu was very satisfied with the male soldiers' morale. At this moment, the more morale his soldiers had, the happier he was as a company commander. At a time like this, he couldn't give in to the female soldiers just because they were female. Sparring during training was also a form of combat. How could he give in? Company Commander Zhu, who had suffered because of Yi Qian, completely stopped looking down on the female soldiers. He didn't dare to instruct the male soldiers to be careful like he did in the morning. The male soldiers were aggressive, but the female soldiers didn't have any stage fright. Yi Qian said to the female soldiers, "Show them what we're made of. Let them know how powerful we are." Just as he finished speaking, a female soldier asked, "Instructor Yi, what about you? Are you going to compete with the male soldiers as well? I hope you can lead us so we can get to know each other better." After she finished speaking, Yi Qian saw several female soldiers nodding their heads lightly to show their agreement. Since he needed to establish his dominance, he naturally couldn't miss this opportunity. He nodded and said calmly, "Of course. I need to understand you, and you need to understand me. After you understand each other, each of you will have the right mentality to face the upcoming training." The chilling voice was like an invisible wall that pressed against the 20 female soldiers. The majestic military might that it carried caused the 20 female soldiers to feel a chill in their hearts. Even the expressions on their faces became much more restrained. Let me remind you that I only like to win. I don't like to lose. In the army, there is no second place, only first place. Do you understand? The female soldiers straightened their backs and held their heads high, and replied in unison, "Understood." The male soldiers were instantly delighted. The soldiers of the 3 companies in the barracks often fought with each other. Even if it was a tug of war, the winner would be decided. The battalion commander would scold the company commander scolded the deputy company commander scolded the platoon leader scolded the squad leader, and the squad leader scolded the soldiers. If they lost to the female soldiers today, they wouldn't just be scolded, they would be beaten up. They would be so ashamed that they would beat themselves up even if others didn't do anything. When Company Commander Zhu saw that the female soldiers were united and full of confidence, he said to Xia Jinyuan, "Captain Xia, our male soldiers are going to lose. You don't have to be courteous, just teach them a lesson. Teach them a lesson." Losing to a female soldier, the battalion commander was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. Xia Jinyuan thought for a while and answered uncertainly, "The female soldiers have been selected, and their overall military quality is very strong. The male soldiers are doubtful if they can get any benefits from them. It's a 50-50 split." Hearing this, Company Commander Zhu's heart skipped a beat. "No way. You have so little confidence in the men in our battalion? Captain Xia, the 10 of us did lose to you and Instructor Yi this morning, but our situation is different. You and Instructor Yi are from the Special Forces. One of you is worth 5 of us. It's not that I don't have confidence, but I haven't seen the strength of the female soldiers. How can I be sure? What if there's another female soldier who is similar to Instructor Yi?" Xia Jinyuan pointed in the direction of the female soldiers. His handsome face became slightly restrained, and his expression became slightly more serious. You heard the female soldiers' answers just now. They didn't lose confidence because they were compared to the male soldiers. It's obvious that they were also famous in their original unit. Otherwise, how could they answer with such confidence? Company Commander Zhu was silent for a while and said in a deep voice, "I have confidence in the soldiers in our battalion." Xia Jinyuan smiled and said, "I also have confidence that the male soldiers can win. Instructor Yi also has confidence that the female soldiers can win. We just have to see who wins and who loses." Chapter 48-65. Male soldiers competing with male soldiers was enough to make their blood boil. Now that there was another male soldier competing with female soldiers, their fighting spirit was completely ignited. Everyone fought with their lives on the line. Before Battalion Commander Tian could get out of the car when he arrived at the camp, he heard a roar that shook the ground from the direction of the training ground. The car stopped, and Battalion Commander Tian jumped out quickly. He slammed the car door shut and called for the sentinel to question him. At 5 in the afternoon, the sentinel changed shifts. He knew everything that happened at the training ground. He raised his gun and tried his best to control his excited expression. He reported everything in detail. Battalion Commander Tian was dumbfounded. Instructor Yi of the female soldier class defeated Company Commander Zhu in the morning and then defeated 4 male soldiers in a row. Battalion Commander Tian couldn't help but cover his face when he heard this. He was flustered. He also heard that the new instructor Xia in the afternoon was going to select 20 male soldiers for key training. Since the female soldiers were also there, 3rd Company Commander Zhu suggested that they might as well compete with the female soldiers. In the end, Battalion Commander Tian's chest hurt even more when he heard this. The 2 second lieutenants and 1 first lieutenant under instructor Yi were very powerful. They took down the male soldiers as soon as they went on stage. As for instructor Yi, who also went through the obstacles with them, it was needless to say. All the obstacles were like flat ground to her. The sentinel was very honest. He answered whatever Battalion Commander Tian asked, and answered in detail. He told Battalion Commander Tian the ins and outs of everything. When he talked about how Yi Qian, who was the first to go on stage, beat up all the male soldiers, the sentinel's eyes lit up. Battalion Commander Tian felt so stifled that he wanted to slap the sentinel's head. Which company did he come from? How could he be so blind? He must be from Zhugan Gang Company. Like company commander, like soldier. Didn't he see that he was so stifled that he was about to have a heart attack? He even kept talking about how powerful the female soldiers were and how powerful Yi Qian was. He only knew how to boost the morale of others and destroy his own prestige. After all the sentinels were selected, Battalion Commander Tian was still excited when he recalled the scene. At that time, the field was very enthusiastic. The male soldiers clapped their hands until they were red. As for the female soldiers, they were shouting, "Instructor Yi, defeat them. Instructor Yi, take them down." The male soldiers usually shouted, "Kill him, kill him." But when the female soldiers suddenly shouted, "Kill them all," the group of men inexplicably blushed. As for Yi Qian and her female soldiers, they were about to leave and did not notice anything amiss. Hearing this, Battalion Commander Tian's cheeks twitched. He ground his teeth so hard that they were like kitchen knives. The words he spat out were filled with murderous intent. "Zhu Gang, if I don't peel off a layer of your skin, my surname is not Tian." The sentry's reports were all Company Commander Zhu said it. Company Commander Zhu suggested it. Company Commander Zhu said 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 it. Not only did he lose, he even dragged the soldiers down with him. "It's fine if you drag me down, but at least win for me. Win. Win." In the end, he lost. Battalion Commander Tian, who was about to explode on the spot, put his hands on his hips and panted heavily. He paced back and forth a few times then raised a hand and pointed sideways at the training field. He said to Company Commander's son, who was beside him, who was also dumbfounded by what he heard and was about to die from anger, "Go, go. Get you gang over here. Aren't you ashamed? Aren't you ashamed? He still has the face to continue staying on the field? Go, get him over here." Chapter 48:66. The sentinel blinked and realized why the battalion commander was angry. Afraid of implicating Company Commander Zhu, he quickly explained, "Instructor Yi is from the Special Forces." The new instructor, Instructor Xia, said that all the soldiers in the Special Forces have been defeated by her. She can even take down 3 Special Forces soldiers. Marksmanship. No Special Forces soldier in the Special Forces can beat her. She's a sharpshooter, and all the guns come alive in her hands. She can hit anywhere she looks. If you go over now, you should still be able to make it in time for the vertical shooting competition between the female and male soldiers. It's not over yet. Instructor Yi probably hasn't gone up yet. Battalion Commander Tian didn't know much about Yi Qian's background. He only knew that the military had sent someone who had just graduated from a military academy. He had 3 third-class merits and 2 second-class merits. He was directly promoted to the rank of captain upon graduation and didn't even need to go through an internship. He was definitely capable. But he didn't expect him to be from the Special Forces. Battalion Commander Tian, who had just returned to camp, was full of questions. Didn't he just graduate? How did he become a Special Forces soldier? Even though he was from the Special Forces, he could still take down the male soldiers in the Special Forces. It was no wonder that Zhu Gangang lost to her. Battalion Commander Tian's expression finally improved. He didn't want to stay any longer. Afraid that he wouldn't be able to make it in time, he quickly jumped into the car and shouted for Company Commander's son to get in as well. After getting into the car, Battalion Commander Tian slapped his thigh. He was so angry that he forgot that Instructor Yi from the female soldier class was his niece whom he had rushed back to see. Drive faster. Battalion Commander Tian ordered the driver to speed up. He couldn't wait any longer and was even more anxious to see Yi Qian. At this moment, the 20 selected male soldiers had all finished their vertical shooting. They released the safety ropes on their bodies, tightened, and loosened them. The last male soldier who had finished shooting stood beside Xia Jinyuan. Reporting, "We've completed the vertical shooting." Xia Jinyuan looked at the stopwatch. The 20 male soldiers had taken 16 minutes to complete the vertical shooting, which meant that on average, each soldier had finished shooting in less than a minute. Their results weren't very good, but they were not bad. Seeing that the female soldiers were ready, Xia Jinyuan went up against Yi Qian, who was still standing beside him with a stopwatch, and said with a smile, 16 minutes. Not bad. Do you feel any pressure? 16 minutes and 9 seconds. Even if we beat you by 1 second, it's still a victory. Yi Qian would not admit defeat. The female soldiers had won and lost some in the previous matches, which made her more confident in the 20 female soldiers. Xia Jinyuan liked Yi Qian's stubbornness and found it particularly interesting every time he looked at him. "Sure, I'll wait for you to knock me down." After saying that, Xia Jinyuan seemed to have thought of something. He lowered his voice and said, "In the future, just say kill, don't say kill. It will cause misunderstandings." Misunderstanding? What misunderstanding? Yi Qian looked at him in confusion. Xia Jinyuan cleared his throat and said a few more words in a low voice. Yi Qian's face suddenly turned red. He glared at Xia Jinyuan fiercely, then moved his feet to put some distance between them. Hooligan. Lieutenant Colonel Xia, who had been called a hooligan by Yi Qian, felt helpless. He had kindly reminded him. How did he become a hooligan? His words were crude, but his reasoning was not. Ready. After a series of whistles, Yi Qian raised her head and looked up without blinking. She gave a thumbs up to the female soldier who was the first to shoot from the vertical descent. When the female soldiers who were ready saw this, they calmly gave their instructor a thumbs up. Chapter 48:67. Begin. The vice company commander put down his hand. The female soldier who was ready pulled the rope and fastened the safety buckle. She faced the wall with her back facing the outside. She bent her hips slightly and kicked her feet. Her whole body began to slide down rapidly. Since it was a vertical descent, there must be shooting during the slide. Moreover, the number of targets that appeared would be different. The first round of shooting might be from the 5th floor. The next round might be from the 4th floor. The first round of shooting might be from the 5th floor. The next round might be from the 4th floor. This depended on the individual's reaction and agility. Bang, bang, bang. The female soldier with the pistol shot the target during the slide. After she landed, Yi Qian looked at the time. Fortunately, it was less than a minute. The male soldiers who were watching from below held their breaths. The female soldiers were indeed very strong. Company Commander Zhu took off his uniform for training. He habitually raised his hand from his forehead to the back of his head. The selected female soldiers were indeed different. They had completely changed his view of them. The female soldiers were not only good at answering phone calls and doing paperwork. When the female soldiers were good, even the male soldiers were embarrassed. The first female soldier came down, followed by the second, the third, the fourth. Although there were some female soldiers who were delayed by shooting, overall, it was very smooth. There were no mistakes. When Battalion Commander Tian arrived, no one noticed him. He watched the female soldiers descend from the sky one by one and shoot nimbly. Most of the anger in Battalion Commander Tian's heart dissipated. Political Commissar Tang, who brought him over, smiled and said, "How is it? Are you satisfied?" If Zhu Gangang did not ask the female soldiers to compete, I would not have known that they were so good. When Instructor Yi leaves, they will definitely be able to shoulder the heavy responsibility. You mean Zhu Zhongwu did it on purpose? Battalion Commander Tian asked without looking away. Why do I feel like he is the one who did it? Zhu Zhongwu was the real name of Company Commander Zhu Gangang. He did it on purpose. He wanted to know the strength of the female soldiers in advance. After all, these female soldiers are now soldiers in his company. As a company commander, how can he not know? Zhu Zhongwu looked reckless, but in fact, he had a scale in his heart. Sometimes, when he was trying to trick people, he would look stupid. If one was not careful, they would fall into his trap. However, the new Lieutenant Colonel Xia was also a shrewd person. No matter how Zhu Zhongwu tried to coax him, he didn't fall for it. He was so proficient in Tai Chi that Zhu Zhongwu didn't know where to start. The anger in Battalion Commander Tian's heart completely dissipated. He narrowed his eyes and said slowly, "Zhu Zhongwu's little calculation is good. Once the female instructor leaves, he can immediately take over as the company commander based on his understanding of the female soldiers. There is no need for a transition period. You suggested it because Zhu Zhongwu was the most suitable of the three companies, right?" Political Commissar Tang smiled. "If he wasn't suitable, as the battalion commander, you wouldn't agree, right?" "You asked, I asked too." The two old partners just smile at each other. "It's fine as long as everyone understands." "Who is Instructor Yi? Show me." Now that Battalion Commander Tian had calmed down, he was more at ease with the female soldiers being placed in Company Commander Zhu's camp. Now, he had a lot of free time. All he could see was a back view. He couldn't tell who his good friend's biological daughter was. Political Commissar Tang told his old partner, "The one with Zhu Zhongwu is Lieutenant Colonel Xia. 1 meter away is Captain Yi. Both of them are very young. In the morning, the two of them beat up 10 soldiers in our camp, including Zhu Zhongwu. The younger generation will surpass us in time." Chapter 4868. Will she go up? Battalion Commander Tian asked again. "I'd like to see the skills of a female Special Forces soldier." He also wanted to see how good his good friend's biological daughter was and whether she took after her father. Of course she'll go up. She's a new instructor. The soldiers under her are so strong. As an instructor, if she doesn't show off her skills, how can the female soldiers obey her? Yes, that's how it should be. She'll be here soon. There are only 3 female soldiers in front. There were still 3 female soldiers who hadn't finished yet. Battalion Commander Tian was already staring at them without blinking. He didn't even have to blink a lot. Xia Jinyuan walked over to Yi Qian, who was standing aside after calling him a hooligan with his eyes. He said in a low voice, "Company Commander Zhu reminded me that Battalion Commander Tian is watching from behind. Don't look back." Company Commander Zhu said that Battalion Commander Tian likes to observe from the dark. Just do the same. Let him watch. Yi Qian glanced at him. You might as well not tell me. I won't feel burdened. Xia Jinyuan revealed a meaningful smile. Can't you tell that I did it on purpose? Yi Qian snorted softly. Of course she could tell. Other people's boyfriends would try their best to protect their girlfriends. But as for her boyfriend, he would try his best to let her protect herself. Her job was special. She couldn't hide under his wings and be protected. Xia Jinyuan smiled again. This time, his eyes were full of tenderness. Yi Qian quickly looked away. Her ears turned red. Mind your image. Don't stare at me. No one saw. Xia Jinyuan chuckled, seeing that his girlfriend's ears were red and her skin was so delicate that it was almost transparent. He curled his fingers and felt a little itchy. It was better to stay away. Only then could he control himself. 14 minutes and 19 seconds. Instructor Yi, are you sure you can beat us? Xia Jinyuan took 2 steps back and said with a smile. He was a little hesitant, but more than that, he was provoking her. Other people's boyfriends coaxed their girlfriends, but Lieutenant Colonel Xia, who was also a boyfriend, had a unique structure. His brain was unparalleled in the world, and he specialized in going against his girlfriend. As his girlfriend, Yi Qian had her own personality. She didn't distance herself from him because of this. Instead, she became more courageous with every setback. No matter how he provoked her, she would return the favor. The two of them got along with each other and broke through the inherent intimacy and love between them as they climbed to the peak hand in hand. Just wait and see, Captain Xia. After he finished speaking, Yi Qian stuffed the stopwatch in his hand into his hand. Together with the last female soldier, he climbed up the single vertical staircase that was exposed on the wall. Hand ladders are vertical in a single U-shaped ladder. Climbing while holding on tightly, or those who are afraid of heights will feel their legs go soft just by looking at it. The trained soldiers not only had to climb up barehanded, but they also had to be fast enough. The female soldiers were the same. The female soldier in front of Yi Qian was a first lieutenant who had been promoted to the rank of outstanding soldier, Sister Xiang. She had a fearless spirit. She said, "Drill master, I'll do my best to climb as fast as I can." When Yi Qian saw this, he was happy and followed closely behind. Halfway up, the first lieutenant turned her head to look and saw that their drill master was just below her feet. A faint smile appeared on her tightly pursed lips, and she moved even faster. As she climbed, she told Yi Qian, "I'm from Xi'an province. My hometown is full of mountains and trees. When I was young, I loved to climb trees the most. I could even climb a 10-meter tall tree. My parents laughed at me for being a monkey." She was very relaxed. Yi Qian felt even more relieved. The male soldiers took 16 minutes and 9 seconds. The female soldiers took 14 minutes and 19 seconds before I set off. Yang Ling, whether or not we can beat the male soldiers will depend on you and me. Yang Zhen, a first lieutenant, used to be a paratrooper in the army. However, she had never been assigned a real parachute jump before, so she entered the Northwest. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.